Well, welcome back to another podcast from the Miles Driven with myself and Owen. Today, we are going to be talking to you about the subject of Audi RSs. So we're going to go through every RS, aren't we? Yeah, I know. Huge subject.
Big, awesome subject.
I think what we'll do is we'll start off with about 10-15 minutes of the news. So if you're just here for the Audi RS, then you can jump 10-15 minutes forward. But there's Audi RS news, which is why we're doing the news first. So before we get into, there's two Audi RSs that I want to talk to you about from a news point of view. Sure. First off, we've got to cover a few things that have happened generally in the Audi world, because I think we've missed them since you were here last. So the new Audi Q7 has been released, the new Audi Q9 has been released. I think we just caught the Q9.
We did just, yeah.
Q7 is launching as a 3-litre diesel. Interesting that they've decided, there's obviously a customer base that they believe is there long-term for the Q7.
Yeah, and they've invested in the engine. So they've gone for the next generation of diesel.
Because you know how that engine was always shared with the A6 and it was always shared with the A8 and all the bigger end of the Audi portfolio, and now it's the Q7. I haven't seen them say, I mean, I guess it will go in the A8, I guess.
Yes, almost certainly, and probably the Q9 as well.
Q9, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But
so.
it's interesting now that, as I say, the 3 litres would go in almost everything. I mean, you buy an A4 with a 3-litre diesel years ago. And now they've obviously decided it's worth investing in for that size of vehicle. Mild hybrid, obviously, but aside from that...
it might be a very heavy evolution of the previous version, potentially.
It's going to have to be. I just can't imagine that you could go ground-up design on something that is going to go in a relatively narrow number of cars in respect to what they've done previously. So that's interesting on the Audi side. We've had, there was the news explosion of the Ferrari Luce, which we'd missed.
Yes.
And at the same time, the Manuel version that they brought out. Manuale, yeah. So we'll split those two. First off, Ferrari have done an EV. Do you think that was a decision they had to make? Do you think they were following a market that they believe definitely exists, or could they have done a sports car EV and got away with that instead?
The premise of doing an EV made sense for them because they will have started planning that car a decade ago, and then the landscape was very, very different. And the landscape was very, very different even 2 years ago. So they had to do an EV, and it would be similar to the quandary Porsche had when they did the Taycan. They wanted certain attributes with the car. They wanted certain levels of performance, which would drive a certain size of battery, which would drive a certain size of requirement for the car. And they wanted packaging to be right and all those kind of aspects, and they needed the range to do certain things. It had to be big.
Yeah,
car. It had to be a big car.
Yeah, which it was.
Which it is.
Yeah. Surprisingly large.
Yeah, very big. But they made the design in the pictures. It doesn't really come across in terms of how actually big that looks, and we'll see in due course when that arrives at various public events. But yeah, big car. Very, very controversial on the exterior designs. I'm not going to go there. Right. I think their launch cadence is interesting, showing the interior first and building it up, talking about the design stories. Their seeding the story is very strong. We've all seen how big the reaction has been on the design. I'm going to reserve judgment till I see it, but that was an exceptionally tough brief. The world's first electric Ferrari.
Yeah, and I think, I suppose the easy decision would have been to do a 1,000 horsepower 2-door coupe something, or just take the 812 or the 12-cylinder, somehow fill it with batteries and just put a sort of a token offering.
Didn't go well for Maserati.
I was going to say, I think this is the trouble, isn't it? You could criticize any decision they would have made, absolutely any. We both agreed before we got on air that actually the Purosangue, they managed to execute that really well, considering where they started, which was basically everyone saying Ferrari can't do it. Yeah, but then they look around and say, well, Lamborghini have done it, and they've done it, and they're making.
But absolutely have permission to do it, and but it's the Luce's really, been an interesting one for them. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I really want to see that interior. But yeah, it's caused a lot of controversy.
Do you think it's a sort of car that they could evolve? Say that they're sat there now, someone in product is sat there, and they're saying, okay, we've seen the reception. It's maybe not what we were expecting, or it is exactly what we were expecting. We know where people have talked about the car's strengths, and we know where people have talked about the car's weaknesses. Can we take the strengths and evolve the car to be something else in 3 to 4 years' time? Do you think that could be a conversation?
Absolutely. So that will help steer their future model development. So they might they have these performance packs, HGE package. Maybe that's helped inform what they're going to do with that, make the car potentially more extreme in terms of design or performance. They will have had a life cycle mapped out, but in any half decent product function, you are very ready to change where you need to. What it will do is it will help inform the comms strategy and what they say next.
Okay.
So the product team will be helping to form that. What attributes they focus on the car when they're promoting it and doing all the training materials, doing all the comms materials with the PR teams. What do they talk about now with the car? And can they address any weaknesses that have been perceived? But
could you rebody it, do you think? Because I mean, like the chassis underneath, they talked about there's a removable battery because they want it to be able to last forever.
They haven't said if it's a modular platform, but you'd have that would be what would be known as a top hat change, effectively.
Yes.
So that's eminently doable.
To talk about it in Audi RS speech, the convertible RS4 that they did in the B6 generation, B7 generation, against having the saloon. So
exactly. They could potentially do different things with that. It's still a very big full car program, still in all new crash program, everything changes still. So it's basically
you can't homologate off of the back of.
Developing a core platform is very expensive. You can use that as a start point, but typically speaking, you have to redesign so many different things. Bear in mind, it's a kind of SUV, MPV, that's maybe a bit harsh, crossover. To make the attributes perform like a sports car is going to be very, very difficult to do.
As our last thing on the Luce, are you surprised that it is the car that it is? Because it isn't, just to take the extremes, it's not a Land Rover Defender 4x4. Neither is it a Taycan. Neither is it an S-Class.
Is it an MPV? I don't know.
I mean, the way it looks is something, but if that was any other brand, and that was what they released, the rules, if I go back to car magazine days, you would call it an SUV only because the MPV segment has essentially disappeared.
Yes.
Everything that is an MPV today is marketed as an SUV. Behind closed doors, we would have called it MPV.
Yeah.
Looking at how they've shaped it,
but we're not allowed to say 4x4 or SUV in the context of Ferrari, right? You'll be scolded.
But I'm sure they don't want MPV either.
Well, they'll probably take SUV for. It's not super clear what it is, which is why I say I kind of need to reserve judgment until I see it, and it might be one of those cars that you just get when you see it. I get it now. I get the context, the proportions, all those things.
From what I understand, people who said they have gone to actually see it say there is a difference of it visually in front of you and it visually on a page.
Absolutely. Well, they all say it's massive, but it would need to be for that kind of battery aspect.
I suppose I'm still on the camp. I think if you were going to do it, I think they probably could have just done a Taycan rival. That would have been like the safe bet option. You go, we'll do sport, 4-door, 5-seat. We'll do all the firsts. But we know there is a market that turned out for the Taycan. Now that market has dribbled away because of McCann launch and all the other things.
And commercials.
And the commercials. But at least if you felt you had to do it, you can go into that space. You would be criticised for not being bold, but you also would be not criticised, for having something different. It'd be like, oh, we see why you've done it.
Yeah, I mean, the attributes the car needed to do, the performance and the range they would have set their targets on would have driven us, with the battery tech available to them, would have driven a certain level of dimensions of the car. So they're basically the skateboard, the battery, the platform was there, and they probably had to clothe the car around it, to be honest, and that's the car they came up with. I think that what's brilliant, what Ferrari have potentially done, is pulled a little coup by having the car designed by someone else.
Yes,
effectively. So the Ferrari design team's hands are clean,
right?
So they can say this experiment didn't work. We're now going to go back to proper Ferrari design. They could potentially pull that. I don't know if they will, if that is ever part of the plan, but that might be a way through. But we don't know what the order bank is on the Luce. We know what the pricing is, but we don't know what it's looking like.
And that gave reception. Their in-house team space to work on a very special product, something that. People have been talking about and asking Ferrari to do for quite a long time. But I actually could, I understand both sides of this. As an ardent petrol head, I think Ferrari manuals should just exist. I think they should just be, you walk into the dealership and we also sell it as Ferrari. And you could be, in all honesty, it could be a full 2 seconds slower to 100 miles an hour and people wouldn't care. Because, I can do 0 to 100 in, 6 seconds or 8. well, I'll be able, I do it myself, rowing the gears. So what I think they should have carried on with it. They didn't. And the answer they've come up with, I actually think is quite brilliant, because I'm not sure, having looked, you know, the profile of the customer that turns out to spend several $100,000 on an extremely fast, and we're talking faster than really most people can handle outside of your racing driver and particularly keen drivers. Putting that within a manual only with all mechanical fitments, I'm not sure what the market size is for that. Doing it this way, that you can sell it to someone who really likes the idea of going along a back road, rowing the gears, and then hitting a button and being back into their safe auto mode, where, you know, they're not going to risk, I don't know, ripping the clutch or something. You know what I mean? Like, or stalling it, which would be the embarrassing thing. If you, if you've just parked outside of a very nice hotel and the valet's giving you your car back and you stall it 3 times trying to get out of the place, you know. So I think it's a clever solution, and I see why they've gone down this route rather than rip it all out and go back.
We do all want a manual Ferrari, don't we? I mean, the last ones were the California T and the California, I think, and the 599, but they sold so few of them. By the time the California came out, they had the dual clutch gearbox, first time in Ferrari, alongside just before the 458, and it was so good. So if you look at in the last 15, 20 years, how much 2-pedal technology has moved on in terms of automatics, they're amazing. It's basically negated the need effectively for a manual. But yeah, the Dolce Cilindri Manuale, I'm going to call it that, is very, very clever. But there's still some reservations. So if you look at the spec, and it's very interesting, but I think people are holding their breath till they actually drive it, because it is still effectively a very similar dual clutch gearbox to the existing Dolce Cilindri. Very good gearbox. Yeah, I mean, and it's how it's controlled effectively. So you have both the gear lever and the clutch pedal are both drive by wire effectively. There's no mechanical connection. And they've done so much work refining that interface, so you can actually stall the car, which is very, very clever. So actually,
after everything I was saying about stalling I say, if you stall a mechanical car, you have to get it going again. If you stall this car and you're really embarrassed, you can go back to auto and get yourself out there.
It's quite a good talking point.
I love the fact that they did put that in.
I love the fact you can buy a Ferrari you can stall.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, how great is that? And it's interesting they've gone for that car, their Grand Tourer. Because I'm also a massive fan of the 812 Superfast, but it could be very, very good. And the timing for that launch of that car just after the
out to the Luce,
exactly, is interesting. The price up is massive because they're going to do a limited number of these cars. But when they say limited number, it's still actually quite a big number of cars.
It's like nearly 2,000 cars. So,
but you look at the engineering's gone into it, and I'm an engineer. I love it. The time they've taken to calibrate these things, and they've really. So I'm hopeful it'll be pretty cool. But ultimately, it's still an automatic. With albeit a dual clutch gearbox, which is technically a manual. It's going to be very interesting to see how it drives. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I think people are going to like it, to be honest.
Do you think this gives them space then? I mean, we all assume it will sell out. Do you think that then gives them the space to say, okay, we've got a better feel than ever for the market, so we can now go whatever the next generation across the entire lineup is. They can say it will come with an unlimited number manual car, and then people can make that choice at the dealer.
I still think they're going to look at the numbers. The only market that's really grown in the sports car space is manual gearbox penetration has been North America. Glorious, thank you guys. It's amazing. So manuals actually have gone up, have actually been really, really strong. They look at cars like Lotus and Mira, etc. They've had a really strong manual uptake. Manuals really, with the high torque turbocharged engines, all those kind of things, it's very hard to get a manual gearbox installation working in those installations with the clutch action, all those kind of things. The fearsome cost of replacing clutches on Ferraris is notorious. So I don't think it'll happen to everything. So for example, it wouldn't make any sense on their replacement to the LaFerrari, because that's all about ultimate performance and pace. But if you look at an engaging car that moves around a bit more and more of a Grand Tourer, and manual makes complete sense. This is why putting it in a Dolce Cilindri makes complete sense to me, putting it in that installation. So in answer to your question, they may well do more manuals if this is a good test for them. The reason they're doing so many of the cars and the price up is so big is because the investment to do it has been massive. So it's really, to get it right, it's taken loads of engineering and energy to do that.
Yeah.
Whether they can make the business case work and charge more for the manual than the existing dual clutch going forward is to be seen. But then we've seen BMW now move from on the M2, for example, where manual gearbox used to be the no-cost option. Now they actually pay more for the manual than they do for the dual clutch.
Right.
So the market, the summary of that is there is still very much strong demand in the performance car community for manual gearboxes, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, she's great.
Which should be praised. So I'm really happy Ferrari have done that. It's really, really great. And we've still got manual gearboxes and GT3s, and there's still a lot to be
I was going to say, I have to say that at the end of all this, you kind of have to leave a little bit of praise for Porsche, because they are, if you can think of another one, then tell me, but I think they're the only one that has a through line of manuals. So today they're selling a manual, and you can go back 50, 60, 70 years. So there's no point where they stopped and came back to them. Ferrari will always have this patch in their history.
Yes.
Lamborghini has now not done I mean, they may think of doing something similar.
They may well, they will also be studying it in detail.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they do come back, there'll be a patch of their history of no manual. Whereas, of course, yes, there was an era of the 991 GT3 not being manual, but there were other 911s you could buy that were.
Exactly.
So there is a through line of you could always buy.
I think you're right. I think it may well be. Yeah.
Probably Lotus.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But with massive gaps in the cars that are coming to market.
Yeah,
so, you know,
sure.
I suppose that's where they but the through lines for manual is actually, you know, I can't, I mean, you can go down to the next step, to the sort of real world fast cars. So yeah, BMW M4, they've stuck with it. M3, sorry, M3 and M4.
Yeah.
Audi haven't. I can't think of the last manual Audi would have been, you know.
Blimey, Audi performance car manual, S1.
Yeah, probably,
maybe.
yeah. I don't know when the S3 got cut off from having a manual, probably 2018, something like that.
Yes, about that, yeah, for the first minor facelift.
But it just shows there's been a loss of manuals. And I just, to me, it's, if you're stuck around, you know, you were the person beating the drum, and go back to Porsche and say they were beating the drum and saying, we're not going to give it up. You can criticize their manuals a little bit for being long geared and all this sort of stuff, but at least they carried on with them, you know.
Yes.
Even when people kept walking in and saying, well, we don't want a manual.
I mean, the electric car era basically means people started dropping out manual gearbox because they thought electrification was going to be a thing going forward, and you can't have a manual electric car unless than you take, of course. So yeah, it's part of a broader product strategy perspective from powertrain. That's what's driven that, and it's very interesting. But Ferrari to make that investment in such an unsteady luxury car market at the moment is really impressive.
We will go on to Audi. I have one last query, and it's completely not to do with Audi.
Sure.
It is that we were saying there about manuals and their possible future popularity. I notice now more and more driver learner cars are automatics, or they're fully electric. And I do wonder in Europe and the UK, because if you're in the US and you, as far as I understand, if you pass your auto license, you still have a manual license.
Right. Okay.
I wonder at what point we'll get there, just from fairness of someone. 17-year-old Jack is in a village somewhere, and he's saying right now, within 5 or 10 or 20 miles of me, there is no learner car that's manual. So for me to learn, I have to learn in auto. So can I have a manual license? Because there is no way for me to actually, you know, because go 5 years out and 10 years out.
There'll be a niche splitting up when the tipping point happens. Bear in mind, a lot of B segment cars for internal combustion are still manual in the UK. We still like a manual gearbox on smaller cars, which are typical learner cars.
We do, but when I think of, you know, Golf, now the next Polo, for example, I don't know if that will be, you know, because the cars that are in that segment, now we know Fiesta's coming back and things like that, which I would be very surprised if they didn't do a manual, but I'm just thinking the learner, not the instructor, you know, they go in for their 3-year renewal of lease, and I just wonder in 10 years whether the only manuals will be an RS Audi or and they'll be like, well, you know, I can't teach.
We'll have to cross the bridge when we come to it. But yeah, the BEV space for electric vehicles will be auto.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be I wonder if it will just become a, you know, like if it used to be, if you wanted to get a trailer, you took a test and then it became automated on your license, and you can take just theory for certain things if you already have a license. And I wonder if they'll say, pass your auto license and then do a theory for manual, and we won't actually test you know,
I can't call that one. Honestly,
be interesting.
I can't call it.
If you're watching this podcast 10 years from now, you can go, well, okay.
Exactly.
Right, we're going to go on to Audis. We've probably gone way longer than I said, 15 minutes. So sorry if you've been jumping through, but we're going to go to Audis. The Audi RS news is that the RS3 is being facelifted because the A3 is being facelifted. Now the facelift is not going to affect the exterior, from what I understand, not going to affect the engines. It is really just an interior revamp to put screens in place of the
extension strategy to keep the car running longer on the same platform.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really touch much on the outside. So they've done the screen thing on the inside. I find it interesting, the facelift, because it feels a bit going the opposite direction.
Absolutely,
where the trend is going back. So, but yeah,
it feels like it's swimming against the tide. You know, the tide's all started to turn.
They had to do something for the facelift.
Yeah.
But they seem to have got more screens and less buttons. So we'll see. And the full model change will probably rectify that.
We've got new RS5. I think I might have actually mentioned the launch of it on the previous podcast, but we're going to cover it just quickly again now, because the Avant, the Saloon, those are the two. We haven't got a coupe or a convertible currently. Historically, the 5 platform has been used for exactly that. It's been the coupe and the convertible. There's no real talk from Audi, and I don't know, because they haven't re-released that sort of two-door, whether we'll get a two-door RS car again, which is more the, you know, if you want to know, it's 639 PS, it's a 2.9 V6, it's a plug-in hybrid. These are not things you need to come to the podcast for. You could, but it's interesting that this car has come out without there being any clarification whether they would give us a two-door RS car. And
it probably will. I mean, it's their sales of the RS5 historically have been quite strong, and the cars, and while there's still an M4 out there, and there's still a C63 type position, they'd be remiss to give up. But historically, RS5 has not been their strongest suit in terms of RS.
yes,
So therefore, maybe that's a reason they've launched with this first warm, to get people warm with in terms of the in the coupe body style. Now they will launch with Avant and hatch first, then maybe that's their strategy, and they'll warm people up to the coupe later.
because just in case you've heard several different news stories, so originally the Audi RS lineup was going to use the odd number for combustion and the even for EV, and that fell apart about 6 months or a year after they announced it. And so now it sort of left it in a bit of an odd space, because the A4's gone, which means the RS4 is gone, because they were sort of like, well, that's going to be an EV, and now that's all sort of pulled back. And the
Audi have had a journey on naming strategy for the last decade, haven't they?
They have. They sort of started with the, you know, it used to just be, you had a 3-litre TDI, a 2-litre TDI,
35, 45, 55,
yeah,
60,
they did all that. And then there was some moving around of what brackets the power is. So you could buy a 55 TFSI. Oh, well, it's the 55 is now only this power, so now it's a 50. It's like, I don't know that you've ever moved people down spec from the one they had to this, you know, I think they just, as you say, it's just a journey. I think they're trying to find their space. It's very similar to BMW. You know, they had to abandon, it was always, you know, 320 was a 2-litre, and then 325 was a 2.5, and then a 330. And then they sort of said, well, the 3-litre now goes into the 2.5 and the 2.8, and that's okay.
That was the E36 facelift where that first happened.
There we go. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Good bit of BMW history there for an Audi podcast.
Yeah.
But, you know, and that journey has now gone to the point where you can buy the 40i's. If you buy it in a large enough chassis, so 3 onwards, then it's a 3-litre. Everything else is 2. And then they're bringing the 1.5. So, you know, it's all become very detached. Trouble for the Germans, isn't it? Because they were very stout with their naming. Like, well, just call it what it is. And that becomes a problem when you can no longer call it what it is. But, you know. So, Audi RS, Owen. Shall we start with a few nods? Because I think there's a few cars that both of us agree we have to include them because they're RSs. But they're not the ones that the Audi community are going to be desperate to hear us talk about.
Nicely put.
So did we say 3? So we've got the E-Tron GT RS. We have the what
the SUVs.
Oh, sorry, yes, the RSQ3. And the RSQ8.
Yes.
RSQ8, I think, is very fair to say you're buying a budget Urus. So,
Yeah. So you boiled down to that.
if you were in the market for a Lamborghini Urus and you looked at the price and you thought, well, it looks
Or the waiting list.
right. Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a bit flamboyant for you. You could pretty much save half your money.
Yeah.
And Audi were not offering a dramatically different car than the RS2.
Same torque vectoring diff, same carbon brake availability, same Nürburgring lap record for an SUV positioning. That car was impressive piece of kit.
Is it fair to say that they really gave that car a proper RS treatment? Almost to the point that we feel a little bit bad for not putting it into the...
I think it's nicely put, yeah. Absolutely, because the car was co-developed alongside the Urus.
Yeah.
So we can't go into it in detail because they're not an enthusiast RS, but we shouldn't take away from the fact the RSQ8 was a very thorough job.
Yeah.
And the ultimate iteration of that V8 as well. So no, good car. And if you want a high performance SUV, they don't get much better than that.
Cool. I think that's very fair to say on that one. Now, the RSQ3 is a really interesting car, and I think probably the one that probably gets the least. Oh no, the e-Tron GT RS. That nicked a lot of headlines because it was the fastest RS acceleration because of course electric and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to say it's a tie between them as to the sort of least talked about, least loved in many corridors of the RS. You've got basically the small econo SUV. So the one that people bought who maybe they liked SUV styling, but didn't want the bills to go with it, didn't want the size to go with it. They're a Q3 buyer. And then they stuffed the 2.5 5-pot in there and went, well, we think a few of you will.
It was just a skunkworks project. It's quite interesting to say the three cars we're going to give a nod to actually all have their own interesting points too.
They do, which is why I think we include them. I'm just going to check your cameras. Sorry, carry on, Owen. I've just got to check your camera.
So yeah, the RSQ3 was an interesting one. They did it, the first generation when it came out, it did surprise people. It's quite incongruous having a kind of C-segment SUV with a 5-banger in it, which is quite an iconic engine. I think the thing that surprised me the most was actually how hilarious it was to drive. And actually, it's got quite a lot of charisma and personality. And I think that even probably surprised Audi. So it looked pretty cool, and it was a bit unusual. So for quirkiness, bit like the Audi S1 actually, it scored quite a lot of points. So it's still kind of not necessarily an enthusiast RS car, but if you need a small SUV and want the fun of that engine, you could do a lot worse. So I'm quite a big fan of that car in my own special way.
You're not on your own, because I've got several friends who are dyed-in-the-wool car enthusiasts, have worked for car brands. They sold cars with me years ago. Basically, their whole life is cars and trying to drive everything known to man. Only one of them, actually, I was going to say all of them. One of them is a holdout because he just hates everything that's an SUV.
Sure.
Which is, if that's your bias, the RS3 could be the Lamborghini Revuelto of the world, and it still wouldn't. But for everyone else, they all say that same thing, that actually, quietly, this package worked, and it probably worked for all the reasons it shouldn't have worked. We love compromised cars.
Completely agree. It's just personality, right? If it's unusual, unexpected, and somehow holds together, you end up liking it even more, right? And because it does work and it shouldn't work, that's very appealing.
Right. I brought up just a couple of quick stats. It was 1,650 kilos in weight. So today.
What's it like today?
Do you know what I mean? Like, you look at that and you think, oh, that's heavy. Oh, actually, sorry, let me recalibrate for today. That wouldn't be heavy. At the time, it was, because of...
a lot of that weight was the engine, and that was a heavy... That first generation straight drive 5-cylinder was a heavy lump.
But still, acceleration, 4.8, not 60 and all that sort of stuff. So, and it had that 5-cylinder that everyone loves. Built on a chassis that really is more akin and more commonly used in the hatchbacks.
Built for a chassis that wasn't ready for it, basically.
Yes. And again, those are the cars people love. Whenever a manufacturer stuffs in an engine because they haven't got any choice, I always feel like there's a meeting, and Owen, you've probably been in these meetings, where someone's gone, okay, good, so we've got this one, and this one. We also need to put that badge on this one. And everyone in the room scratched their chin and gone, well, I don't know how it's possible because we can't hot up the engines that were already in there. And someone's gone, I think we could probably fit the pickup points for the engine.
Well, it's the same pickup points as an A3 because it's effectively a platform shares engine installation. It will have been a conversation commercial to say, This is turning into an RSQ3 podcast. Amazing. It would be the conversations of how can we increase the average margin per unit? How can we of that cut of the overall Q3 platform? How can we address the fact the car's not particularly known for being a great driver's car like the equivalent BMW?
Yep.
Let's do something wacky and unusual. Let's take a risk in quite an AMG Mercedes way. Fair play, Audi. Took a risk and see how it went. It didn't sell a load of volume, I don't believe. Not bad for an RS model, but actually the fact that it got the oddball kind of appeal was quite good. Although it didn't get a huge big fanfare when it arrived because it was quite unusual and it didn't have.
I think they had a lot of other stuff going on as well.
They did, a load of stuff going on. But no, you're right. That kind of meeting would have happened.
And someone just went,
we can, so why not?
Yes.
And it is different and unusual.
Someone would have said, well, we could hot up the 4-cylinder even further because we've got the SQ3. Well, how much further can we push it? Well, at this point, we might as well just stuff the 5-cylinder in, and someone's gone.
Couldn't RS it. Yeah, you couldn't RS the engine, but yeah.
The one I'm just search for, I'm trying to find the figures for the E-Tron GT RS.
So I believe get an overview of it. It's basically Taycan Turbo S, right? So same installation as Taycan Turbo S, same kind of diff logic. I think it had the same ceramic brakes as standard. I think it had things like potentially active roll control, rear wheel steering.
Pretty sure, yeah.
All the high performance motors and the battery packs, and then all the driving tech to make it go around corners. But not quite as striking looking as a Taycan. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think if it has existed on its own, we wouldn't say oh well compared to the Panamera.
I agree.
It's just the fact that the J1 platform that it's built on is a co-share. And this idea that there's two options. The E-Tron GT, that body is actually harder to build than the Taycan because of how it's styled, and that's why it never got the wagon. I mean, you think out of those two brands, if either of them is going to do a wagon,
it would have been Audi.
And
in the van,
it was the Taycan, and that was, I think, probably more because of, as I say, I can't remember. There was actually a styling house that did the E-Tron GT. It is in, if you watch the buyer's guide, it's in the buyer's guide. I mentioned it, and it meant that if you buy one, I don't want to say you're buying the more exclusive version of the Taycan, but the Taycan project was going to happen. Audi sort of attached themselves along for the ride, brought their investment, brought their...
Well...
Oh, sorry, I'm speaking to...
No, you're right. You're right. It's fine.
Go on.
It was the J1 platform was designed to be co-funded with Audi and Porsche together. Yeah. What Audi did was accept they were going to do lower volumes because they're going to keep the range much smaller at a higher price point. That's probably where the car struggled.
Yes.
So Porsche's bandwidth for the Taycan was always wider. They were always going to do a cheaper version and a more expensive version.
Which I think led the decision of, well, we can go for quite a special style because we know we're not going to do anything more with it.
Yes.
We're not going to try and wagon it and all that sort of stuff.
Special style though, with better style than Taycan? What's the better looking car out of an E-Tron GT or a Taycan? It's a good question.
I mean,
it's certainly distinctive, right? I mean, I like it, but it's
definitely, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, they positioned the cars not as a volume car. It was going to be their first BEV. So Porsche's first BEV was Taycan, the first BEV for Audi in terms of performance context, performance BEV, because they had the E-Tron already. They were going to position it as an SRS type model to reinforce electricity as the performance flagship.
I do almost feel that Audi kind of would like to have, like Porsche always say the first one is the Taycan. I think Audi would prefer us to remember the GT as their first EV. Yes. It wasn't, we know, because it's
the E-Tron.
Was it is it E-Tron that became the Q4? The naming. So it started as an E-Tron, but then became a Q4.
E-Tron Q8, wasn't it? The big car. We'll come back to you on that one.
Yeah. Okay, yes. But essentially, this lineage doesn't start with the E-Tron GT, and I think they would have preferred that. And
agreed.
And maybe, it did, because it had a few things that it bust open, which was the 2.5 second was the fastest, 0 to 60 time for the Audi RS range, and that kind of gave their push. They gave a lot of advertising and marketing behind it.
They did some quite clear advertising with it. Yeah, but it didn't have the traction that Taycan did, I think. Yeah.
Do you think that was solely? I don't want to be harsh to Audi here, especially on an RS podcast. If you are a company car buyer or you own a business, whatever the situation you're in, and your accountant's called you up and said you have to buy an electric car. The tax incentive is so good, you need to buy it.
You need to do it, yeah.
and they're not someone who's maybe particularly into cars, but they've been told, well, you can buy any EV. And they've gone, so I can get the one with the Porsche badge on it. Does that carry to the average person that is getting a car because it's a company benefit? They're not saving the pennies in the bank to go and buy themselves. Does the badge alone?
There's a bit of that, but I think the fundamental problem was, why would I pay more for an Audi than I did for a Porsche?
Okay.
Because spec adjusted, it's completely logical. So the Audi e-Tron S would be up against maybe the GTS or the S Taycan and be price parity. Right. The fact that start price of Taycan was significantly lower, you had to basically say, here's the Audi e-Tron and it's better spec adjusted than the equivalent Porsche. That was the problem, I think. They positioned the car for a car that could be perceived as less significant because it was Audi's second electric car, not first car, and the Taycan was Porsche's first electric car. I think there's a positioning piece on that, which is what caused the problem.
Automotive press probably element as well. I think a lot of the testing, because look, let's face it, back then, whatever people think of Tesla today, if we go back to 2018, if you only bought or were willing to buy an electric car and wanted to go to the drag strip to go and embarrass a muscle car or whatever, people were buying the Tesla S.
Yeah, it's a bit done now, that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely done. I mean, but at the time, that was the people were moving across from there and going, you can have a Taycan, so we're going to race them. And the one that, if they're going to do that drag race, it was always the Taycan that was in the drag race. It was never really, like a few magazines did, but for the majority, they weren't going and getting. And also, the funny thing is, to buy the Taycan that could do all that, you had to buy the Taycan Turbo S. You couldn't just buy the Taycan. It's still a fast car, but it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the GT for the same thing. Oh, you got the GT. Is that the thing that does 0 to 60 in 2 seconds? Oh no, I've got the GT, not the GTS, not the GT RS. So the name,
and it came out after, didn't it? The e-Tron GT, it came out after Taycan.
It was, so the Taycan got all the launch.
Yeah,
it wasn't a long.
No,
but there was. You're absolutely right.
It's a combination of things. I think that made the e-Tron GT struggle more. And some say it doesn't look as distinctive design wise.
Well, if you think about it as well, if you're at a magazine and you get that Taycan launch and you do all the drag races and you do a range test, you all that, and then Audi come along and say, oh, here's our version. You say, oh, what's different about yours?
Audi would say it's very completely different, sir. Very, very different for all these reasons.
And if you're trying to convince,
the whole list,
car journalists at a magazine who know, they spent 3 minutes reading your press launch. Oh, hold on, GA1 platform. Hold on a minute. What's the motor? Oh, right. Is this just a Taycan?
They were quite open about it.
Oh, they were.
And I think it's actually partially why Audi did exactly that and repositioned the car as a performance car, even more so than the Taycan. Just to say this is different.
So I have to be honest, at launch, I thought they were only launching an RS. So because of the way they launched it, was just the GT RS. And then it became evident, oh no, there is other versions of it. But because they sort of positioned it there, I almost wonder if they would have been better only selling it.
Well, pre-facelift, it was just the S and RS, wasn't it? It's only till later post-face they brought a slightly cheaper version in to try and drive some more volume.
They did an update.
Yeah.
So you got a facelift comes 25, but there is an update between launch and then, and it's that point. So you're right, it is, but it's
a big model change.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the facelift for the GT really is nothing. To be fair, much like the Taycan has a 25 update. They've made a few changes. But again, I wonder if this is an EV problem. If you've gone through a wind tunnel, you've done all that investment, you've got the drag coefficient low enough, and then someone says, oh, we need to facelift it. And you go, well, if we make any changes here, it's going to screw up over there. And
I can help with that.
Yeah, our engine man's are cool with that one, Right, so those are our special mentions, okay? And they actually went on for a lot longer than we thought.
Well, because actually, they're special mentions, but they were special and worth mentioning.
Exactly,
so
exactly. Shall we start with the smallest? Actually, let's start with the original. Let's go back to where it all begins, and then we're going to work our way from the smallest to the largest.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all begins with the RS2, which is an Audi with a lot of stamps.
Yeah.
Don't say Audi.
Yes, it's true. So the RS Range Sport, so not Rally Sport or racing, it's Range Sport.
Yeah.
The RS2, yeah, what a great program that was. So this was not Audi's first foray into performance cars, as we'll all witness for things like the Quattro, etc. So, by the point the RS2 came out, it was based on the existing S2 platform, which already had a very good warbling 5-cylinder engine. But I think it's fair to say Audi had been a bit burned by the reception to the drivability reception to those cars, and it was considered nowhere near as dynamic as the early E36 M3s at the time, which even they were pretty compromised and those kind of things. So Audi, I believe it came from a kind of skunkworks type angle. So what they did was attach a bigger turbocharged existing 5-cylinder engine, boosted horsepower from 230 PS to 315 PS. They then.
So I've got the figures in front of me. Owen hasn't, everyone.
Okay.
I was getting ready for the correction.
Right.
It was very good.
I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. In fairness, Audi goes back a long way for me, and RS especially.
But it's more that you said it in PS. Because I'm expecting you to say it in brake horsepower and get it wrong. Because you know how all people always do this? They'll say 315 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's 315 PS. But I should have known. I'm talking to an engineer.
That's okay, yeah. So PS is close to horsepower, but yeah. And they did some very, very clever things. So the body in white, actually, the core platform didn't actually change compared to the S2 it's based on. But before I go into that, the positioning was interesting because the Audi RS2 seems to get credited to be the first performance estate car, but it wasn't. It was actually it was the combination of launching with the RS as a new thing for Audi, as well as it in an estate body and painting it bright Nogaro blue and all these things, and the Porsche,
good color,
amazing color, and all the Porsche bits on it as well, which I'll come on to again shortly. Yep. That was the big impact of the car. There were performance estates before that, namely the BMW 34 M5, and there was one other one I forget, but I'll come back to that. So it's not a new thing about performance estates, but it was the first probably. Oh yeah, the Volvo T5, 850 T5, by that point was already with us. So it came out in 1994, first unveiled in 1993.
Just to add in, the S2 did the 4 years prior.
Yes,
absolutely. Because I think it's only fair. We are talking about RS.
Yeah.
We're talking about RS2. I just want to add in a couple of little mentions for the S2.
Sure.
Because just to be fair to it, I know it's not an RS in this context, but I don't know that you get to the RS2 without the S2 existence, and probably without the reception that the S2 got.
Exactly.
That leads on to the RS. So Owen's been absolutely right with everything he said so far. It's just really interesting that to make an RS, usually as we go through this now, there isn't going to be a point where I say, oh, well, the S they whack different turbos on it. Even if there are the same engine use, which there are a few instances of, it isn't just we turned up the boost or we did this. There's a whole package that goes around it. And this really starts that story, of what.
I think absolutely right. Spot on. It's the genesis of the whole RS brand. The RS2, the S2 powertrain is amazing. It had a great torsion four-wheel drive system, upgraded brakes, really good design, really sought after now. S2s. They only made the S2 in coupe and Avant. They never made the saloon. There were prototypes of the saloon, but they never were. So for their impact of the RS launch, I think the RS2 for me was a response to the increasing performance dominance of BMW. I think I suppose part of it was. And they wanted to rekindle the original UR Audi Quattro type vibe. So they wanted to bring that back. So the turbo installation was a big bump up in horsepower. It wasn't subtle. I mean, it wasn't overly complicated. So they didn't change things like torque splits and all those things. It was a great big turbocharger slapped onto that very, very tough 5-cylinder engine. They didn't even reinforce the gearbox, believe it or not. So, but they had some really nice detailing outside. So they had Porsche 968 Club Sport brakes with the calipers. They had the same wheels,
and everyone knows.
And in the little details, they integrated 993 indicator and fog lights into the front bumper as well. So some real nice detailing. And some bumper covers, and that's about it actually, with some badges. So outside, it was the wheels and the ride height that made the difference. The obvious suspension side, but it was one of the world's fastest state cars. It did over 160 miles an hour. But interestingly, rather than 0 to 60 time, it's the 0 to 30 time that got all the plaudits, because it was actually quicker than a McLaren F1 0 to 30 miles an hour. So if you got the boost dialed up, you drop the clutch, and it had, interestingly, heroically tough clutch, the RS2. So there's some cars that have very high mileage original clutch on them. It was about the straight line performance. What it wasn't really about, though, was dynamism, I'd say.
Yes, and I think that's something that as we go through the Audi RS range, with time, it gets evolved, but that's probably something that's going to be leveled at the RS range continuously.
Spot on.
I was trying, to find what the prices are of an S2 today, but every single time I try and launch something, it opens an app.
A
on my
nice
iPad
one is well in excess of 25k now, my
Okay,
experience.
great, yeah.
And
I've been pressing every button on this iPad trying to get any app to open, and I've gone all the way back to
a nice S2 is a nice valuable thing. The RS2s have gone pretty stratospheric, I think, justifiably. It's got this very big cool factor that's very hard to put a finger on, but the way it was conceived, the way it was put together, the impact, the relationship with Porsche, where it was built, the quality, the durability. There's some super high mileage ones out there. I looked at one for myself actually 9 months ago, and it had done 242,000 miles and was fresh as a daisy. It was a Robusta green one, beautiful. So yeah, but the durability is amazing, but they really are coming into their own now. Some parts are quite hard to get hold of, but they are rebuildable, and their faults are known. But I'd say that it's a heck of a cool vehicle and very, very quick.
Very, very hard to find for sale. I've just the whole time Owen's been there, I've just been trying to find, and I can't find them on any websites anywhere. Both the S2 and the RS2. So I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but let me try.
Yeah, they can't. And I think it's things like the RS2 even made things into computer games like Forza and those kind of things. So which then got a bit of critical acclaim through that way. So RS2, a heck of a way to launch a brand. And I have really impressive
found
car.
one for two. I found two for sale. Nice. What do you guess an RS2 is today? Just as all the prices are in euros.
Give me a mileage.
There's 3 in front of me.
Yeah.
4 in front of me. Okay. Right. They are
common as much.
200,000 miles.
Yeah.
Kilometers. 200,000 kilometers. 120,000 miles.
Yeah.
60,000 miles. 175,000 kilometers.
110,000 miles. Yeah.
110.
About that.
Yeah. Okay. 110,000 miles.
I reckon the cheapest one's going to be about 60,000 euros.
And then the last one is in miles, so that's 78,000, and that one is a one of 180 UK supply cars. So we'll come back to that one in a second. Ooh. Let's do the other 3. You guessed 60,000 euros. You were right. 63,000 euros.
Wow. Okay, I'll take that.
One with nearly 200,000 kilometers, so 120,000 miles on it.
Yeah, yeah.
The one with 97,000 kilometers, so 60,000 miles.
Probably about 80,000 euros.
99,900
oh, wow.
was the asking. And then the other one was the 175,000 kilometers, about 110. You were saying 120 maybe.
Oh, blimey. I don't know, 75?
95.
95, wow. I mean, bear in mind, these are all advertised prices, Miles. The actual transactions are different. But yeah, I mean, there's 4 for sale, which is a few.
And then the one that was the UK supplied one. By the way, none of these are Nagaro Blue, because I've just managed to find a Nagaro Blue one. Right. Which...
None of the yellow are there, because that was a really, really rare one.
No.
Okay.
No, they're all this dark blue. Silver one, UK car, 78,000 miles, Polar Silver, £80,000 asking price.
Yeah.
Interestingly, it's 150,000 kilometers is the RS2 left-hand drive Nagaro Blue one, 80,000 euros asking. So, yeah, I mean, clearly... they haven't been forgotten about.
Nice summary. And they have gone up a lot. They did get, but they never got super low in price. They never got silly cheap.
That's probably helped them, because they've probably don't have the enthusiastic owner that jumped in when they got cheap, but possibly then didn't.
Yeah, they never got down there. I think when the RS2 came out, people knew it was cool. Right. I mean, the people, it's cooler now, don't get me wrong, but people knew it was thing special. Autocar did a really nice piece on it. Andrew Frankel drove it, and it had really great things to say about it, but it was not a perfect car. And that's exactly right. You said earlier that it kind of set the tone for some RS Audis going forward. But an awesome thing, and I really want one.
You know what's funny is weight, 1,600 kilos.
For an RS2?
Yeah.
That's more than I thought.
That's what it's quoting here. It's quoting an S2 at 1,525. And the RS2 at
because it's weapons grade brakes and suspension and wheels and stuff. So yeah.
But then interesting that people would be critical of the RSQ3. This is a heavy SUV. Well, almost gone back to
maybe not
where they started.
Good point. Very good point.
So we'll do size now.
Yeah.
Size and age kind of fall into the same bracket here. Starting at the smallest ones, the first RS3. Had a very short span, and at the same time, which we'll try and cover these two together, the TT, RS. So they're both at the same engine. We know underneath there's a platform share going on between them.
Both S-tronic.
Yes, which was an interesting moment for the RS because I'm trying to think actually. Is there a
No, the Mark 1 TT RS, sorry, did have manual.
the TT
But
did
the RS3 didn't.
yeah. Again, an interesting decision because they had the capability to clearly chassis share the same engine, so you know obviously it made their decision on that. This RS3 only gets 2 years of a run.
Yeah,
maybe no, it's 2 years.
cool looking thing.
Yeah, and still desirable today, but I like this car,
Me too.
but I like it for the reasons that probably a lot of people don't like it for. So I like it that it's basically was never meant to exist.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it feels like it was never meant to exist.
yeah.
I remember driving one of these when they had been out for a month, just been able to get hold of one with the place I was working with at the time. And I don't want to be too, make it sound like Audi sort of whacked it together in the back. It felt like a really, really good tuning company had got hold of an S3 and ripped the engine out and gone to town.
Done some stuff on it.
And because it didn't, I don't want to make it sound like it felt like an upped S3. It didn't, but it felt like a modified project. And that was its absolute greatest strength because Audi are very good at doing, here's some sensible speed. So look, we painted it grey. It will be blisteringly quick everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And carry on with your day. And this kind of felt like they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they went, well, it's a hot hatch. And bearing in mind that this is the prior to all the other mega hatches really entering the market. You don't have AMG 45 at this point. I think it comes in a couple of years later. You don't really have, you have fast, Focus RS, stuff like that, but there's nothing.
But you have the M2, I think, maybe by that point.
So this is
that's where they had, that's I think probably the answer to it.
M2 comes in what? So 1M.
1M.
I have at the time.
Okay, so it's 2011. I can't remember the title.
Yeah.
2012 RS3 or 2013?
No, it comes in 2011.
2011. Okay,
So
so you're
the
right.
chassis
It's
ends
1M.
2012.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Audi, if you have to go up against anything, what BMW, because BMW do the exact same thing with the 1 Series chassis. And I suppose we could pull that argument closer to the TT. But I think what we can say about this first RS3, probably one of the ones that maybe is a little bit overlooked, possibly because it didn't get a full world release. And because it doesn't fit the brief of most RS cars going on. So little things, the exhausts are on one side of the car. They're not big ovals on each side. It is, and it feels like a project that RS sort of had put on their lap. Here's the car. It was developed a decade ago.
So you've done an engine for the TT. Let's put it in the A3 as well.
Yeah,
Make it work. I feel a bit of that. Yeah. I think it was interesting because it's based on the Sportback, so there's no 3-door version.
Again,
it was bizarre. So kind of maybe trying to take a bit of the RS2's spirit and spread it over the top because the Sportback was always quite a big 5-door hatchback version of the A3. It was the Haldex four-wheel drive system. I think was partially what held it back. There was no rear torque split. It was considered and it was a very heavy engine over the front. So actually, it was quite understeer prone and relatively numb on the steering. It looked really cool because it had the blistered wheel arches. There was a unique body in white for the RS3, and the people I know who had them really, really liked them. But it was quite a two-dimensional driving experience. It was quite a point and squirts car in quite a traditional Audi way. So very, very fast, but it wasn't necessarily the most dynamic. Similar thing we just leveled at the RS2, I'd say. So it was kind of more of the same, but very cool car, and it sounded amazing.
And on the other side of the coin was the TT.
Yes.
Probably the car that you'd say was more of a triumph than maybe Audi expected, because the TT had this, go back all the way to 2000. What is it? It's the stylish Audi. It's the new wave of Audi. It's the demonstration Audi of what you could buy. And then, they pushed it with the 225 horsepower 1.8 turbo, and then they gave that a swan song of a sport with 250, and they put a 3.2 in it and all this sort of stuff. But it never really got its moment until it goes into the second generation. They say, we're going to give it the S treatment. Okay, so then it becomes the TTS. And you think, that's probably as far as they will go with it. Because if you look at direct competitors, Z4, You probably should put a Porsche Boxster.
Yeah, you know, box of Caymans, yeah.
Yeah, you've got to look at how far you want to push the price bracket of the car and how much development do you want to do on this car.
Totally.
And an RS can't just be, like we've discussed, an upped S because you can't get away with it.
No.
And it wouldn't be true, going back to the RS2, as to the ethos of the whole project. So they've then brought through this plan of let's put 5-cylinder, let's go for some fairly wild styling. I don't think anyone would say the TT RS is restrained.
No.
Particularly because you could buy it, I think it's Python green or something like that.
Yeah, it's big wheels and bumpers though. There's no big wheel arches.
Very big.
So and rear spoiler, which is very extreme. Yeah. Yeah. It was,
made it look, and I suppose the fact that it was Quattro helps the idea of Audi can say, well, that's a track car. And you go, well, most of these are sold as front wheel drive, 150 horsepower. Yeah, it doesn't matter. This one isn't. You know? And I think because they went to quite far lengths with it, didn't get chassis widening, as you say, like maybe would have been the next step. But probably, I'd love to say the RS3 was the one that really gave the junior Audi, and I think in later generations, definitely. But at this point,
no one had done it, had they? I mean, there's felt like a proper wacky hatchback with a great big engine in front. It's a Lotus Sunbeam kind of thing.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, nice.
Whereas TT sort of slipped right into the market and had competitors that had to beat. And I think that's why I say maybe a little bit of surprise from Audi, because they go, well, now we've pushed ourselves up. You know, people aren't saying going into Audi dealers and going, oh, I want the slightly faster and nicer one. Oh, TTS is the car for you. You know, now they're saying, I want the Thundermaker, and I am cross-shopping it against proper competition, and people are buying it. And I think that's a testament to how well Audi did with the TT, because it could have gone the other way, and people would have said, oh, it's a hotted up, you know, soft, whatever, you know, coupe that's really for cruising and blah, blah. And Audi just worked their magic.
Yeah, it's only really got into its stride in the third generation now, the RS. I think because the weight of that engine, it was a kind of iron block, that 5-cylinder. And also, again, the four-wheel drive system, because it's a Haldex system, has only so much ability to make it rear torque biased. We discussed it on the Macan recently about how you can do it, but it's difficult to do. And it didn't have the wide wheel arches, those kind of things. So Audi were trying to carve out more of a performance message with the TT to build on the TT Sport you mentioned for the Gen 1 car, but it still really struggled. I don't think they sold a huge amount of volume on that, but they did have a manual gearbox, which was nice.
And again, and I'm not going to do weights for all of these cars, but RSQ3, 1,650 kilos. RS3, this generation, 1,650 kilos. So that's hatchback weight.
The car we've glossed over at the start. We keep on coming back to again and again. This could be a theme of the podcast, guys.
There we go, yeah. But yeah, I mean, as we've sort of talked about there, I think the advantage this RS generation came out with was lighter than the RS3 of this era. And it opens a door. And I think had it failed, I'm not sure Audi would have gone for a second go of it. Maybe they would. Maybe they would have said, we sell enough TTS models. We don't need to go through all the additional development if we are going to get, you know, if people are just going to drive a Z4 and say Z4 is better. Because it went into those group tests and held its own.
It's an overall brand piece. Would have seen it from Volkswagen Group perspective, potentially going backwards by not introducing it, or certainly acknowledging there was a problem with it in the first place. There was no inherent problem with the TTRS Gen. I say Gen 1, it's Gen 2 TT, but Gen 1 RS version of it. There was no inherent problem with it, and the margin was very good for the ones they sold. And they did sell a few. Yeah. So
well, they sold it over a long period of time. It was 09 to 14 or the last.
So long life.
So
for one of those,
you know, considering.
So it came in 2 years into the second generation TT life cycle.
Yeah,
good shot.
And stuck around. As I say, unlike
in response to the Cayman, which was only 18 months out from that point.
We'll stick with the smaller cars. So next generation RS3, probably the one that I don't want to talk down on the first generation, but the second gen is probably the
nice car. Things
move forward.
Very nice
and
car.
Fairly dramatically, if you buy 17.5 onwards. So there's a I'm going to say facelift because I think it happened just before the facelift, but essentially it's the facelift. Brings in they call it a Dazza, but it removes iron block. Big horsepower potential for the car from a tuning perspective.
Yeah.
And also it moved the the whole sort of, because it also had the 4-door, so it could go to the US and that had a market pick up there. It just moved it into a different bracket.
And as I said, the 4-door. So up to that point, it'd only been a hatchback.
That's
first
it, yeah.
we had a choice of 5-door Sportback and a saloon, but still no 3-door.
Yeah,
But
3-door was gone.
What a great looking car. It looks amazing, that generation.
Yeah, I know.
That second generation of RS3.
Yeah,
really good.
And the funny thing is, if you're a big car enthusiast and you're listening to this and you're actually seriously thinking about buying an RS3, not as many people as you would think know about the engine change. So the early ones and the updated ones, the price difference, if everyone knew, you'd see like this inflection point in prices. It doesn't happen like that. There is prices increase per year as you'd expect as you get newer, but there isn't suddenly a leap. Yet not only tuning potential, but also just the engine's durability and everything else, it all changes. There's the whole conversation about, does it become because of the R8 engine changes and it's a half an R8 and all this sort of stuff. And there are some points that can be made about what could be used, but it connects it so well.
And it was just the massive weight reduction, because you switched from an iron block to an aluminium block. So the weight over the front, which Audi have always had an issue with, got reduced massively, which helped reduce understeer. And I think they also tweaked the four-wheel drive system to address the issues with the first generation car. So Audi, Volkswagen Group in general, are very, very good at that. When they're developing the second car, they look at the feedback from the first one, and the other German brands have really moved in their performance car game as well. So they knew the RS3 had to make a jump, but it was very, very effective. It still wasn't as dynamic as the certain other brands, but they really did learn from the first car and they listened to customers. So kudos to Audi. I just go back to the design of it; it looked amazing. And
just as a quick comment, the sedan moved in on 17. So if it's an early car, you can't get the sedan.
And having run an S3 sedan, very, very impressive car, significantly better to drive than the S3 hatch as well.
I think that car moved them into I don't know, it almost competes in a different segment. I don't know why. There's something about that it's not a hatchback. Yeah. And really, the hatchback should be the one that you and I sort of say is the better one, because it's more practical and blah, blah. But I don't know.
The drivability, it's because it's still in body shell. There's a perception, whether it's true or not, that it's more rigid. More of a driver's car, right? And it's slightly longer wheelbase, all those kind of things. Bear in mind, you had Mercedes CLA saloon A48. Sorry, not a CLA, A45 saloon versions, those kind of things, knocking around.
And the CLA comes
as well. Yeah, exactly.
Comes along with the 45.
So you're absolutely right. Yes, you're right. So the competitive environment had moved on at that point as well.
I don't want to not talk about the TT doing exactly the same trick, but to just save ourselves repeating ourselves, the same journey happens with the TT, but the TT's journey takes it to the end of its discussion on this podcast, because it gets the update for 15, it goes to a new model, we're just speaking about the RS, by the way, comes in, RS3 is on one side, TTRS on the other side. They're pretty much from launch, they're just after the launch. They move forward with the car, but the TT has to stick around. And then 2024, it gets its final edition.
Yeah.
And as that car aged, became, in my view, more desirable, because it was from an era where people still said, to add power, we have to add cylinders, displacement, larger turbos. And it felt like the days where, to make more power, you have to do all the fun things. It'd give engineers a great headache, but on the road,
they love it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, and just masochists, just like late nights, and But this idea that at the end of the day, as the TT went through its years, because it had the 2020 revision as well, because it had to meet some emissions stuff, it just kept creeping up in people's expectations, because everything else was going in one direction because it had to. And Audi kind of knew, this is the swan song, so let's just keep selling it until the day we can't.
It was also just so great. I mean, as you rightly said, the TT just got better and better throughout its life cycle. The Mark III ended up in such a great place, and the RS took it to the next level. My understanding is the TT-RS has slightly more horsepower than the RS3 at the same time. And they'd also done a lot more work on the four-wheel drive system, combined with a lighter engine, more aluminium construction than TT at the time. It was a 3.7 second 0 to 60 car by the time it got to the end. and there were performance packs and those kind of things as well. It was an absolute weapon. So the final TT-RS was a heck of a way for Audi to bow out with the TT. Really fantastic car by any measure. So that was for me, that was a high point for Audi. And actually, if you look back at Audi RS lineage, which we've implied already, varies quite a lot. I think, Pete, in the context of RS, that third generation TT-RS was actually quite a strong one.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. I think if we were talking the halo of the RS brand, and we were trying to pick out a few, I don't know.
Probably top 5?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Do you reckon? I think so.
If you were a really keen Audi enthusiast, and you were making a 5-car garage of RS cars,
the best ones, yeah.
I mean, you put the R8 off to the side because it isn't. I know, but it isn't an RS.
It's not a wrench board.
Yeah,
right,
so we can't.
Never made one. Yeah.
If you're that committed and you say no, it's got to be have an RS badge. I don't know that you cannot have a TT, and from all of that, the answer is that.
So what you're saying, Miles, is an absolute guaranteed certified future classic.
100%.
I agree.
I mean, to be honest, anything that's got a 5-cylinder in it is probably, but the whole package. You know, we can talk about that first RS3 that comes through, and you say, well, the engine, having a 5-cylinder is quite a unique thing. It was just really the Focus RS and ST, and with the Volvo
channeling a bit of Audi 147 GTA, that first one, wasn't it? Wide arches and stuff. It looked pretty cool.
And you know, so you can see the essence, but once you get to the TT RS in that Mark III, it's just a complete car.
Stunning.
It's a fast thing that's going to go.
And they kept on pushing because of Porsche.
Yes.
And they wanted it to beat a Cayman. That was the mission. That was one of their benchmark cars. Beat the Cayman. Yeah. And it got so close.
I really do hope that, by the way, 2025 onwards, you know, for the next era of cars, that this continues. Because I think we are in a space where you say, how does it continue? Because it wasn't just that they were chasing Porsches. They were chasing Porsche with a different ethos. Porsche at the time was saying, okay, well, we're sticking with flat engines. We'll have the flat 4 or the flat 6. And we're going to go in mid-engine. We're going to keep that design going.
Sling a turbo on at some point,
Whereas Audi are chasing them down the road with a 5-cylinder that they don't have, and it's unique to this car. And you can't be in the room sort of making that decision. You've got to make it on a unique aspect of either car. If over time cars all become drifting to the same low CD, EV, you know, whatever, you risk that sort of chasing to the line with a different ethos. Maybe there will be a way to do that with EVs, I don't know, maybe with motors or something else. But I like the fact that everyone kind of has figured out the 4-pot turbo is the answer of getting power with efficiency that can get through emissions tests. That's why the Golf R is such a great car. But that means that everyone will try and answer a question with the same answer. Everyone will just end up with a 4-pot turbo. This was an era where BMW said, well, we think the straight 6. Porsche said, no, what, you mad, flat 6. And Audi went, you don't know what you're talking about. Straight 5.
Remember the original Quattro? We're doing it again.
Exactly. I think that's a magic moment in car history. And I think I'm glad that Audi kept going with the TT as long as they did. That we're going to cap off the TT there. We'll move.
Rush out and Barwin, everyone. Amazing car.
RS3 gets its current generation. So sticking with the 5-cylinder again, it's had a couple of threats that have managed to get it got through because of emissions that looked like it was going to kill it, and then it survived it, and now it's, as we said at the start of the podcast, it's going to keep going for a bit longer. I think that we come into the same conversation we did with the Golf GTI here. Basically, the previous generation RS3 on that previous platform, can't remember. It's rattling around in my head somewhere the name of the platform, but I've lost it. So
I want to say 8V, but that might be TT.
That's the chassis. I'm thinking of the actual platform.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you got that.
No.
8V, you're right. That's the
I'll take that.
That's the Audi chassis code. But there's the VW Group platform name.
Right. Okay.
It's like MQ something. Anyway.
QB? Don't know. Fine. But the
RS3, I will find it.
The big step change for that car was also the tech and the screens, but also for this generation of RS3, it was what they'd finally done at the back with the car to get it driving better, which was that basically, I call them twister diffs. It's basically torque vectoring rear differential.
MQB, you were right.
Thank you very much.
So the MQB platform was so well, it did such a great job across a lot of the performance cars that it was in. it's under a lot. If you know the VW group, so it's under the GTI, it's under the R, it's under all the A3s and the RS3, modified each time for each application, but essentially same platform. Same for the TT. I feel that this current generation was sort of set. It came in and it had to add in all these new funky tech-filled things and do things like a one-wheel drift and stuff like that. That's
Focus RS threw down the gauntlet, didn't it?
Yes, but the purity of the previous generation then sort of shines through and says, "Oh, I can't do that, but I'm fun." I feel like, oh.
Different kind of fun.
Different, exactly that. And it's difficult because if you're a car enthusiast, you celebrate each car for its attributes and what it can bring to the table. But of course, the market doesn't look at it that way. And the current generation RSQ3, RS3 has faced more headwinds than any of the previous generations when it comes into being able to keep being sold. And as we mentioned, that's meant that for Audi, they can't add more power to it. Okay, really, the idea of adding more power, not only does it mean they would start to step on their own toes once you go to the next step up, RS4, whatever else, but also they've got to have emissions on one eye, and to keep a 5-cylinder alive, I think is a gauntlet.
Yeah, those OPFs had some work to do, didn't they?
They did, and because of that, we sort of are celebrating the current generation RS3 for different things, not better, not worse, different aspects. I still think I remember when I first saw this come out, it was 2000, I might have seen one in 19, maybe it was late 19 going into 20. It was the first time I saw this gen.
Yeah.
And I just thought, that really is the absolute exterior evolution that the RS3 needed. Because the other one was still paint it grey, restrained. Like you could drive that on a German auto.
Some big rotor wheels on, but yeah.
Yeah,
the point.
but I mean, if someone who bought the black edition 2-litre diesel, if you're not that into cars, you see that and you see the RS3 in grey part driving along the motorway, you and I would know. But there was nothing that screamed about on that gen. This generation screamed. You couldn't confuse it for any of the other cars. Yes, of course, on the previous gen, you could paint them funky colours and that would pull them out. But on this gen, you paint it silver. It still was screaming at you. And it kind of felt like Audi, from the styling side at least, could unleash themselves. And maybe there was a conversation of, we know we can't do much more with the engine. Let's do it with the styling.
Yeah, they've tickled it a bit boost-wise, haven't they? But it's still
quite nice. I think it's 10.
Yeah, it's not taking the huge jumps that the
I'll get the figure.
45, what the AMG A45Ss are and those kind of things. But yeah, the message really was from that third gen. I think Audi were tacitly saying when the third gen came out, first one we knew was a bit of a thing, a bit wacky, unusual. We tried to improve it a bit. We understand we still didn't get it right. So we're now going to go full on dynamic focus, switchable this and that, rear differential, torque vectoring, like on a Focus RS, but in the next generation of it. And it did actually drive really, really well. So all the media was saying, yeah, this is the best driving RS3 yet, but it wasn't coming from a super high base, if that makes any sense. The engine was undisputed, but now I think it's fair to say the engine finally had the chassis it deserved with that car. And it's been on quite a journey. It's been on sale for a long time, and it's with this moment of electrification and what performance cars can carry and what ones can't, and how hard it is to keep them going, as you said. But yeah, it's going to be weird for a while. That 5-cylinder is not, the death knell hasn't fully sounded yet for it. It's still going to carry on a bit longer, and they're going to keep putting it through emissions programs in the RS3. So yeah, amazing car, that third gen RS3. Bit more subtle, I'd probably say, than certainly the first gen RS3. The arches weren't quite as extreme. They painted it some pretty wacky colours, as in fairness. The press cars are bright yellow and bright green, those kind of aspects. You can still have a subtle spec, but yeah.
It's a great blue colour. It's not Nogaro.
Is it not?
There is a, I think they do Nogaro, but there is another blue that they painted on it, and it looks really, really good.
It might have been an old historic, maybe Sprint Blue or something. But I need to go and check.
Sprint Blue, by the way, is a fantastic car.
It is a very good Audi colour.
I remember when I saw the V8 S5 in 07 in the Sprint Blue, and it had the white leather. I remember just thinking, how do I was 18 at the time. I was like, how do I afford that? And then realised that there isn't
extended range Audi car.
Yeah, I just looked. I don't know. Anyway, but that's all to come. So that caps off. Sorry, by the way, if you're watching this, you see me keep getting up. Owen's mic is attached to the camera that's on him, and if the camera goes, then his mic goes, and I can't save anything. So I'm just double checking. A bit paranoid that his camera will go, only because I can't see the battery on his one, so it's fine. Shall we move on from the? Do we have anything else on the smaller segment?
Yeah, so RS3, they said it's going to have, they've just effectively done a run out version of the RS3, but at the same time they said actually it's going to carry on. So the run out version they've just done has upped the power slightly, and it's moved over to coilover adjustable suspension, or kind of manual suspension.
Is it branded?
And
Is it theirs?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it might be branded. I want to say Olin's, but I might be wrong. But I think it might well be Olin's actually.
Yeah,
I've done some quite clever things. It's been lowered. It's got something more power. It's got different wheels. Bright green paint, and the biggest headline is the price, because my goodness, wow, it is a £90,000 Audi RS3.
And it does feel weird that they're doing all of that and then carrying on the car.
I think when they did that car, it wasn't going to carry on. I think that's the key, probably the key thing. They went in the third generation of Audi RS3 one at the moment. When they're planning the life cycle for that, they probably had this car in their mind. So we can go more extreme. We can do coilover suspension. We can do slightly more horsepower. Let's do things, especially at the end of the life cycle. They're going to, and different paint colors, those kind of things. They've gone ahead and done that. But I think a decision was made after that point where they agreed to green light that car to actually keep the RS3 running longer because of the shift away from electrification slightly, and also Audi needing to get their mojo back, and they can do that through some very, very strong RS models. So why let a successful car go? It's still doing the numbers, it's still doing really well, it's still a very profitable car for them. Let's keep it running. Let's go for another emissions program. It's like the first generation Land Rover Defender all over again, right?
Right.
Let's do a new engine, new Puma, 2.4, 2.2. It'll still be there. Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I think that's probably the reason, Miles.
Yes.
But yeah, the run-out version has been well received. The best driving RS3 ever. It's taken onto the next stage. That's an amazing color combination they've got on that car, and it's a load of money. But they say, I think they say they're sold out for the UK allocation of that car. So that is, I'd say it's a nice swan song, and it would have been. But then I think the decision was made to carry the car, and probably within the last 12 months, that decision was made to carry on the RSQ.
It looks that way. Yeah, I was trying to see if there was any official sort of turn on it. It looks to me like what they've done is they've just tried to call that. So it looks like it was originally going to be like the final edition or something like that, like the TT, and then they've stepped naming across and gone like, oh, it's going to be the GT.
That will have been a late decision.
Yeah, very.
I bet some money on that. That actually that was supposed to be the swan song, and they've rightly, well done Audi, agreed to carry on the RS3 for longer.
I was hoping to find if it was Olin's that did the suspension, but there's a lot about it. I suppose because it's become the S3 GT is what it became. So if you're looking for one, if you hear us talking about it and you're like, oh, I haven't heard of that, and you try and find one, and it had 7 horsepower increase.
So it's different. So 10 PS.
Yeah, 10 PS, exactly that, basically. Exactly, it looks like, again, it's an idea of they're squeezing it, and they gave it lots of other things, so.
But yeah, that is that's the smaller Audi RSs, right? Yeah, wow. It's I think there was a Audi A1 Quattro. Remember that, the 4-wheel drive one with the big wheels? That was a limited run car, but it wasn't badged an RS. So it was still, but that was the only thing. When you asked me the question, what other small RS cars that could have fallen into that? But no, that was some good cars there. Some more dynamic than others, but yeah, pretty special.
So just if you're watching this, you've only got Owen on screen at the minute, and that's because the camera is overheated that's on me. So after all that concern that it would be your camera that failed, it's not. It's
there you go.
It's as if you're living in the UK, we've had heat wave after heat wave. It's the height of summer, and we're in a very hot room because of all the studio lights that are on, and I knew a camera would probably give way, but you haven't got me for a minute. The camera will cool down. I'd usually run it with fans actually on the camera, but because we're both in here in limited space, so we'll carry on from there. So you won't have my face as we talk about the RS4.
Yeah,
that's the next step.
What a thing!
So starts in the. I'm gonna get my Audi name.
B5.
Yeah,
in 2000.
And there's 2 generations of V8. Yeah. both naturally aspirated. Audi seems to be quite true to the idea of we want it to be a V6. It seems to be like their latest press conversation. Ever since it went back to V6, they always talk about the B5 generation being a V6. Whether they're just,
it is convenient.
I was going to say, whether this is someone in marketing was flicking through and went, well,
that's someone in the product team, like
right, exactly, yes, exactly.
Spinning
it's basically Owen, yeah.
But I quite like the concept. But yes, you're right. So 2 generations of V8, one better received than the other, which I'll go on to in more detail, and then back to V6. But that is where the RS4 started. If you're taking the RS2 out of the equation, which is a 5-cylinder. But yeah, RS4, B5.
RS4 and the B5 is Avant only, is that?
Avant only, yeah. So at the time, it was based on the S4, the B5 S4. So that was a 2.7 litre bi-turbo V6.
Yep.
Had 265 horsepower and quattro. Again, still quite traditional Audi, so fairly non-communicative steering, fairly anodyne four-wheel drive system, but liked car, nice car. They're very well sought after now. A nice S4 is a valuable car.
What do you think? What do you think price-wise? I'll check it out.
For a nice S4?
Yeah, RS4.
A nice RS4. Oh wow, well the bandwidth's pretty big. You can get a high miler for probably around early 20s to mid 20s, depending on the color combination. A really, really nice one doesn't command as much as an RS2 does. A really, really nice one's probably 50s, 60s, I'd say. Yeah, a B5 RS4. So yeah, Audi's first A4 type position for RS. That car, that platform, the B5, was never designed to go anywhere beyond the S4 position. Just so you know, it was never designed to do that. So it's quite a late decision to make the RS4, effectively.
Yeah, because it's 99 to 01.
Yeah, it made it very, and it was very late in the life cycle.
I was going to say, basically it's 2000
out. Yeah,
and so it's 99 that they make the announcement.
Exactly.
2000 is then the car.
So launched in Misano red, bright red, and all the press, and he had some pretty other funky colours as well. It was A4 Avant with a really blistered wheel arches, but the engineering around it was quite interesting. So they had 2 points. Can you just say that?
I was going to say, do you know why Audi's got blistered arches for a couple of generations? It's a thing of the RS. That's how you tell an RS, and then it disappears. Because we were talking about the RS3 and the TT a minute ago, and you mentioned it didn't get the arches, and everything moving forward from that, RS6 gets like a wide body, and we'll come on to that later. But the RS always had the swollen arches, and then suddenly, as you move into newer generations, they either have to have an entire wide body, or they don't get it, like a TT, for example.
So what they did to the later cars, I'm jumping ahead a bit. So, so for the later generations, what they did, the body in white stayed similar, but so you didn't get the flared rear arches. What you then got is flared front arches and side sills to match, to blend into normal rear arches. But at the time the RS4, the B5 came out, it had blistered front and rear arches.
Yeah, which is more expensive to do.
Yeah, definitely, because you need it's a unique body in white. But to get the car to perform dynamically how they needed to, they needed to increase the track. And also they needed the visual impact to the car. So to address the handling effective deficiencies, that's not really fair. To get the car to be performed greater on track, and they did a lot of Nürburgring work, they needed a wider track on the A4 to build the RS4, so they did that. But that platform was never designed to do that. So by making a suspension, that stiffened the suspension a lot to do that. It put a lot of pressure on the wheels of the car, believe it or not, which is shared with the TT. There were a lot of warranty claims on Generation 1 RS4s for bent wheels. It was one of Audi's biggest warranty payouts was for that car.
Did not know that.
I didn't want to start that car off with a fault, but that was a challenge. But no, the powertrain was interesting because actually the 2.7 bi-turbo engine in the S4 standard car had 265 horsepower, went up to 380 PS, I believe. Yes. With the RS4. That was actually done by in partnership with Cosworth. And interestingly for Audi, they talked about that. I think they acknowledged the fact they'd engaged a proper, like, really credible race company. I love Cosworth as a brand and really goes back a long way with. And they did a lot of work on the turbo installation, the cylinder head. So actually the concept wasn't dissimilar to the RS2. So actually, let's just turn the wick up on this. Right. But it again wasn't the most dynamic of cars. Big heavy engine over the front, still torsion four-wheel drive system, but no real rear torque bias yet. But what a cool thing. The thing that really sells that, for me, the B5 RS4 first gen, is the stance, how it looks. The squatness, perfect ride height, perfect wheel to tire ratio, the wider wheel arches, it looked so aggressive in something like Ava Silver, the Mazzano red launch color. An amazing car and very well liked and a good following today. But again, compared to, it was constantly chasing BMW M cars, it didn't have the dynamism, but it was incredibly fast around the Nürburgring.
Do you think it helped it that it was a wagon? So because it was a wagon, yes, it was going up against the M3, but it was a body shell that
absolutely
on its own.
Absolutely.
So, you know,
they were definitely making their links back to the RS2 to acknowledge the fact that Audi are owning performance estates from that point.
Right. Yeah.
They are the performance estate.
To be fair to Audi, I mean, BM have come back to it, BMW M5, for example, and the M3. But if you said to 100 people, name a performance wagon, I can't think of another brand that's so well attached to that.
I completely agree.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone. I mean,
Volvo,
Volvo, but then Volvo
Mercedes, maybe.
Volvo had, you know, like we drove the Polestar. They've had hot Volvos, but I wouldn't say they've had up in the RS echelons for any
T5R and 850R were never that level, never designed to compete with that.
We drove the Polestar. There's the review on the channel of that, but it was kind of a one-off, really. Well, it was a one-off. I mean, they moved it to a 2-litre after the one that we drove was a 6-cylinder. It appeared and then it disappeared.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is the one I think. If you just said wagons, I think that opens it up. But performance wagon and Audi is, something that goes together. You were right, by the way. I did bring up the values, the prices used. There's a very, very wide span, bigger than I thought. So yeah, you pick one up on an auction site, 28 grand. Yeah. For 113,000 miles. You goes then 30,000, 26,000. So they all sit together. But then there's probably, I mean, they're not low mileage. So high mileage cars. 64,000 euros and 89,000 euros. I'm guessing just the fact they're left-hand drive, because European left-hand drive cars always more. The right-hand drive car is a 17,000 mile car, and that's £60,000. So that's the high.
Yeah, I mean that's a heck of a lot of very good-looking, very charismatic car. I've been lucky enough to spend some time in a B5 RS4, and the thing that exceeded the expectations was the performance. It is eye-opening.
I still go back to the thing of, I think what makes these cars or RS special is that Audi go to the effort of giving it its own chassis. It's not its own chassis. They swell out the arches, they give it that wide body. And I understand that must be a colossal expense. I cannot imagine having to, you know, try and get that past every part of a decision process where you say, it's going to cost this much, and we're going to sell this many. There's the halo aspect, there's the marketing aspect.
Brand piece, yeah.
But we could just do the front, which is a change of front wings. As you say, maybe the sills around it. There's some little bit of other engineering. Obviously, you've got to change the track and all that sort of stuff. But that's going to be dramatically less than the rear of the body shell has to.
You're absolutely right. And that was the learning they took. So later cars, after the B7 generation RS4, then started to have the body from the outset of the program be developed with RS in mind, so they could have that later, which makes it cheaper if we do it from the outset.
But it feels cheaper.
Yeah, it's not got the impact. It's not got the
it just
factor.
Has that.
Yeah.
You see something and you're like, that, I don't see that. The only place that I could think I've ever seen swollen arches on a car is a max power McDonald's drive-through. Do you know what I mean?
Amazing.
Do you know what I mean? Like, no one swells out the arches of cars. That's a very difficult, expensive, challenging thing to do.
You might need to re-crash test it. You do that as well.
I mean, today you probably would, because you know, it all
more special.
Yeah, and I think
to justify the price point.
It justifies why Audi have this moniker of the performance estate car.
They go further than Mercedes and BMW for the design, don't they?
And they started
for that era they were doing it. Yeah.
And they started there. Bear in mind, when they did the RS, they could have gone, okay, we got an S4. Let's hot it up. I don't want to spend too much doing it. Let's hot it up. And they just stayed true to the RS that we've known, you know, again, the conversation of the RS2, and then this through line of, if it's an RS, it's an RS. It's not, you know, an A4 anymore. It really just isn't. It's got to be an RS, and fair play to them, because they could have started let's see what the reception is. And maybe the next time around. And they didn't. So then we go on to the B6.
Yes.
Which is...
That's what I meant earlier, B6.
So once you're into the B6 here, I just want to see what they probably sell for. Do we think they sell for too much money?
Right, so I know this quite a lot at the moment because I'm looking for one. So there's a really nice one for
so
sale.
we're going to say they sell way too much. They should be half the price, and then Owen can get in there.
Tell you what the car dealer here, mate, but bang on. That really, really nice one is a 40, 50 grand car now. So it's fair to say
What do you think the bottom of the market is? I'm assuming one I'm looking at here must be broken.
Depends if it's a convertible.
Okay.
Convertibles don't go for a lot as much.
Okay, a convertible.
They did bottom out briefly at probably 16, 17K. I think.
Yeah, so I'm looking at one that's 16.
There we go.
But I've seen one here. Oh, you might have to go and buy this one though. Hold on. This must be broken.
No more. So the B6 RS4 I think is fair to say probably this is a big statement, Miles. So I'm saying for this.
Yeah.
Is it the most critically acclaimed RS car ever? That was more of a question rather than a statement.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting on that as an answer. I'm just saying,
that's not a hill that you're going down.
No, it's not. I mean, it was so well received. 2005. The thing that car had for it is the engine and the chassis together came together to make it drive really well, and it had the powertrain.
Let's turn this generation around. What's bad about it?
That generation.
That generation, the B6 RS4. Sorry.
B6 RS4, yeah.
Yes, B6 RS4.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm mixing myself up. Because, do you know what it was? Is that I went to look at what the prices are, and I've sent you down a thing there. I was looking at B7.
Okay.
I typed in, and it's found me the wrong ones. So,
okay.
Right. Let me go back. Let's just back it up.
I'll stand by my price point though.
Okay.
B6 RS6 starts from 16, but I might be that's going to be a leggy one. It's going to be a ropey one. They might have gone up a bit since then.
I'm struggling to find one.
Okay. But while you do that, I say the B6.
Yeah. Okay. So that website doesn't have one. So I'm going to go back to a trusty old Auto Trader and see if they got one. Carry on. Sorry.
So 2005 to 2006, you put in manual V8, that will cover it. So because they're only available manual gearbox.
Yep.
It was the launch of the 4.2 NA V8, which I think has been deemed by many people one of the top 5 greatest engines of all time. So that was probably Audi's best engine to date by that point, even considering the 5-cylinder ones they've done have been so critically acclaimed. So the powertrain was awesome. Went into the R8 as well. And I was actually working at Audi UK, and we were doing some of the early planning for the B6 RS4, and everyone was very excited by the stats. So naturally aspirated 4.2 V8 had 420 PS and would rev to just around 8,000 RPM and make one of the most incredible noises ever. It went into quite an incongruous looking B6 body shell at the facelift point of the B6, so it came halfway through the life cycle, and it had the blistered wheel arches and the large oval exhaust pipes, and it had a 4-wheel drive system that really did, along with revised chassis, really did the numbers. The engine was quite light, and the steering actually was very, very good for a performance Audi as well. So all these things came together to mean it drove superbly. And it was up, but it had to, because it was up against the E46 BMW M3 at the time as well. So driving focus was really, really key. Audi really emphasized the engine and the powertrain at the time, manual gearbox only, 6-speeder. But actually I think it was probably the chassis that surprised and impressed the most with that car. So it was available in both saloon, sedan, and Avant estate at the same time. I think they sold in the UK more Avants than they sold saloons, pretty sure they did. And it had some really kind of bespoke, really nice carbon interiors, Recaro wingback buckets, all those things. They're really well sought after now, the optional and seats in that car. And it's really got a hell of a following. So the B6 RS4, people really love that car. It's not something I've owned, I haven't driven them. But it's the powertrain and how the chassis and powertrain work together that made it so.
I need to jump in because we've been saying the wrong Audi terminology.
Okay,
you're right that it's the B6 and the B7.
Yeah, the B7 was the facelift of the B6.
It's the facelift, but the B7 is when the RS4 comes.
Yes.
So just to clarify what we're saying here, the B6 and the B7 are one generation with two different codes.
Yeah.
So when Owen's talking about the B6, he actually means the B7.
Yeah.
Because you actually said the B6 facelift, and it's like, yeah, that's... And what I couldn't understand is I kept looking and looking. I'm like, I know there's a B7, I know there's a B5, and I'm thinking, I don't think there is a B6.
Sorry, mate, I should have said.
And so there is an S4 on the B6.
Yes.
Okay, there is, but there is no RS4.
Also an
B6.
awesome car I'd like to talk about at length, but not now.
But we'll do an S.
And that's the
one.
S4 is awesome as well.
Yes.
Sorry, the same engine as the
Sorry if we've gone down along the thing and people have been confused there. So you were absolutely right. Everything you said is correct. It's just that it's a B7.
Yeah.
And that's, we can pick up the conversation.
Came in with the facelift of A4. In fairness to you, mate, the facelift of the B7 to B6 was not a big jump.
This is what just threw me then. When you said B6, I was looking at the B7 and I was thinking, hold on a minute, hold on. The B6 is just the years don't make sense. There's got to be a B7 he's talking about, and you're giving me the details. I'm like, he's talking about a B7.
So I've had a B8, which is the one after.
It's the one after, yeah. So yes, sorry, it's probably me getting more confused than anything, but you're absolutely right with everything that you said. B7, it came up against obviously the holy trinity of V8s before Mercedes, BMW, and Audi all went with it. I suppose it's probably the one, if in 20 years' time people are looking back on RS, what cars are they going to talk about? They're going to talk about RS6s and the RS4 of some generations. And I think the one at the minute that would stand out to me is it's going to be the B7.
Absolutely.
There's the new one, which is a 5. It's not a 4. So there's the one that you had, naturally aspirated. There's the one in between, so the sort of 18 to 24 era, that went back to turbocharging with a V6. But for whatever reason, this one, I'm going to say it's because it's got flared arches, and I think they should flare arches on it.
No, I've just waxed lyrical about it. So it's the engine was new, it was the chassis, and it's the design. Those things together, and the fact it steered properly, and it didn't feel like it had a massive great weight over the nose, which it still did, because they had a torque split but focused towards the rear on the quattro four-wheel drive system as well. So it was just a lot of positive driving attributes coming together at the same time, just as the V8 M3 was launching as well. So yeah, it was the right car at the right time to really take it to BMW. And it was probably, drivability-wise, the closest an RS Audi has been to equivalent BMW at the same time for me.
Do you think, I know there's going to be people that actually prefer this to the M3. And I know some people who are fans of Audi would be like, well, yeah, I prefer them all. But the gauntlet of beating an M3 is one of the highest to jump.
Yes.
I don't know, in the car world, you know, in the performance car world, sorry, that there's these sort of, these high watermarks that you have to get above. And, you know, okay, the Porsche Boxster, or the Cayman, more likely.
It's a really high one.
Yeah, so anything that goes up against that, the one that a magazine sort of calls up and says, can we borrow this because you're the watermark? The M3 is that car. I'd love to say, you know, to Mercedes fans, to Audi fans, that it's one of your cars, but it isn't. It's the M3. And on this gen, I think the only reason that you could really push hard for the BMW is because it has a flat plane crank V8, and it's the only time they ever did a V8 in the M3. But, and it's chassis balance, you can argue, but people don't buy because of lap times. People buy because of how cars make them feel, how they transition from, you know, going from an autobahn cruising along to suddenly I've got 10 minutes on the run back home and I'm going to be on a back road and enjoy it. And this car does something, I think, that possibly did just leap it over an M3. Feels a bit...
That's a big, bold statement.
It is.
But it's a high, you're right, it's a high watermark. And it came in at the point E46 M3 is running out, so CS.
It kind of sits right in this middle where you've got the V8 coming in.
Compared to both.
Yeah. I would say that whole statement stands for a year, because this then leaves the party in 08. So it's only around really for the V8 for a year. And I think if I was at BMW at the time, I would have been surprised as to what Audi brought. Because I know the convertible is not that desirable on the, but if you were trying to find a direct coupe to coupe, you know, the two-door, Audi now had it. Okay, wagon, M3 didn't even have it. Audi had it. And then the sedan, that model, Audi have it. So for that year, there's something about this gen that I think will live long. And the only reason that I can't say past the M3 is because the M3 is also so very special at that moment in time. I'm going to say they're an absolute tie. And I don't know that a time in history
So it happened, yeah. I go with that.
They're an absolute dead heat tie.
Never a point of durability perspective, and RS got that close to an BMW in that segment.
Yeah,
We'll go later to another segment.
Yes, of course.
And we're talking about D segment. That kind of. Yeah.
There's a whole different conversation to be had when we go to the next set of cars. But I think it's just obviously we both have an appreciation for this car. I think the standout thing will be where it sits in maybe 5 years' time.
And what the longer term durability is going to be like.
And because ultimately, that's where one thing you could sort of talk against if you buy a V8 M3, at some point, someone is going to start talking to you about this thing that connects rods.
A Conrod Vase. Yes. It's got 8 of them.
So you know, that's an accepted part of maintenance as those cars age. That's going to happen. These cars don't get away with perfect.
No,
you know, either they will.
FSI, you got clogged. You know, I've had an R8 with that engine in. They, you know, walnut blasting, those kind of things. They do have bits that need doing.
Pretty sure they have a extremely complex chain on them as well.
Yes,
which
is changing a cam chain is a nightmare. On
the
car. But it was on the S4 standard S4 as well.
Yes. Oh yes. I mean, we've made it hard for one, so we'll make it hard for the other.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, there's no point where you say, well, one can find an element, you know, we're not going to argue about fuel economy because that's not part of this argument. You can argue practicality goes with the RS, but for the buyer, I think when they were new, that would have been a huge factor because there would have been people who said, well, I've got a dog, and I've got a family, and I've got to a point in life where I can buy one of these, and I want an estate. So I've walked into BMW, asked for their estate. They said, sorry, let's sell it. So I wandered over to Audi, and they said, yeah, that extremely hot, everything screaming about it, and you can even have it in silver and
fair play to Mercedes who also engaged in that, but Audi made it all more usable.
I feel like it almost feels unfair to not be talking about Mercedes and BMW in this era, but it is an RS podcast today.
You're right.
So they'll get their moment in the sunshine. Do we think, because we've got to move on to the B8 generation, do we think this RS4 was the standout of RS4s?
Oh, yeah. So depending on your focus. So drivability, I'd say so. Yeah. Okay. I mean, in terms of, the latest one is amazing. We'll get onto that. The RS4 is drivability amazing, but I think it was a sea change in terms of drivability compared from the B8 to the B7. There was a huge jump in terms of it had a new powertrain, finally a full drive system that worked. It steered properly. It looked amazing. It was really a really good balance of attributes, to use an engineering expression from a manufacturer perspective.
So then we move on to the B8 generation. Owen, I'm going to let you talk about this one exclusively because
exclusively, right? B8. So yeah, it's the next generation after that. It's stuck with a second generation, the 4.2 litre V8 engine. More horsepower now, so it had 450 horsepower, but we lost the manual gearbox. So the B7 didn't have an automatic option. The B8s didn't have a manual option, so it was straight to S-Tronic. Great gearbox, so really good. And I think it was panned is the wrong word. That's not fair. But the press at the time preferred the drivability of the equivalent Mercedes and BMW, and there was a bit of a logic to say it's back to a relatively inert Audi to drive in terms of an RS car.
You can see this in the prices, by the way.
Yes, and having been a B8 owner, I've experienced this in terms of the experience of the car, and I get it. I've driven lots of cars and owned a B8. I will say that for me, a real high point of the B8 was the design. It had the proper blistered wheel arches. Of its competitive segment, it looked incredible. So I had a Daytona grey one, and with 20-inch wheels, the diamond turn ones, it looked spectacular.
Because it essentially has a wide body.
Yeah, whole body. Yeah. Wheel arches, the sills, the rear. It looked, the stance, similar to what I said about it was back to the B5 RS4 in terms of the glorious stance of the car, the perfect ride height. Wheels filling the arches perfectly, really great design. Interior's amazing, and it felt very, very RS-y. The thing that for me it struggled with was the fact that it had this NA screaming V8 engine. So it made, the engine wanted to be revved and really extended, which means it didn't have much low down torque. So the Mercedes C63 of the same generation was effortless, just a slight flick of the ankle.
The 4 litre coming in.
Or the end of the 6.2 litres as well.
Well,
So but both of those, the
torque
do a whole
was incredible.
We would well do, yeah. But yeah, the torque on both, the AMG torque is basically amazing.
Yes.
But the torque was quite limited low down. It got going further, but still revved to 8,000, so it made an amazing noise. But it had this engine which was really, really dying to rev, but the chassis didn't really seem with it. So the chassis felt relatively uncommunicative. The ride quality was quite hard, but that didn't result in greater handling. It was a very safe, high-speed Audi. If you wanted me to go on the Autobahn at 174 miles an hour every day to and from work in RS4, absolutely fine. But it did not make you want to drive it down a twisty road fast and having a really dynamic drive time. For a straight line acceleration, it did in terms of the drama of the engine. And that's probably what for me made it struggle, was the fact that the engine had all this charisma and drama, and it wasn't, but the chassis wasn't willing you to actually go and exploit that.
If you had to guess, what is the reason that they put the V8 in there? Because they knew I'm not saying they have spies wandering around each other, but in Germany, between the three big prestige, the Mercedes, Audi, BMW, I'm sure there is a feeling that they know what each other are doing to some extent. So they must have had the wind of the idea. Well, BMW going for a turbocharged inline six. Mercedes have got their Thundermaker 4 litre V8 coming through.
Yeah, why do an A?
So why go for a 4.2 V8 in this car when it's very obvious that you're going to be, it's not the previous era anymore?
I can pretty much picture the conversation, to be honest. So the logic will have been, can you get the attributes out of the car? Will it accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in this kind of time? Can you do that? Yes. The engineers will come out and say, yes, we can do that. Now, they came off the back of the B7 being a complete earth shatterer, world breaker. They will have put a lot of credit to the B7's success down to the fact the engine was such an absolute work of art. Again, probably top 5 greatest engines of all time, that 4.2 V8, 8,000 RPM engine. So basically, logic might be we have to switch to B8 generation because the B7 is stopping production. What made it so great? Okay, well, people loved how it looked with the wide wheel arches. They loved the engine, the powertrain. We had some queries in some markets say they would have preferred it having an automatic option like the rivals. So therefore, for the B8, we're going to stick with an NA engine. We're going to do a next evolution of it, give it more horsepower, an extra 30 PS. We're not going to do it. I don't think there was a massive weight jump. I think
I'm just checking.
Yeah, I don't think the weight jump was huge, actually. There's a lot more use of aluminium. So I think that's why. And I don't think there was another alternative engine in the portfolio. They could have easily plumbed in to do that. The S4 of that generation was a V6 in fairness, wasn't it? The B8 S4 was a B. So they could have hopped that up and done another Crosworth
essentially, that is what you get in the B9. The 3, so they stick 3 litre in the S, depending on where you are in the world, blah blah. But that's a side note for the S model. But the RS becomes a 2.9, but its code is the same as the 3 litre because they are, from an architecture point, very, very similar. But then the 2.9 has different turbos in it. It's a different stuff, ethos behind what they're going for. And eventually, as we talked about in the Macan, it becomes the go-to engine that Porsche use instead of the 3 litre. But the engines are not that dissimilar. In this era, so you said about weight, it's 1,800 kilos, and the previous generation was 1650.
Oh, it's 150 kilos. Yeah, it's a bit.
The heaviest one was 1845. That's convertible.
It's about 7 or 8%. It's a bit of a jump.
So you know, I get every generation. What we see with cars is they get heavier. Yeah, that's pretty much, you can track that. If you go back to 1950 to today, so 70 years of cars, what you'll see is a pretty continuous line going upwards for weight. And I don't know how much that would be credited to the fact that it was an 8-cylinder, you know, it's a V8 engine that's gone into that generation instead of trying to pull weight out with a V6. I don't know how much has played into the overall weight gain. I would have thought safety tech and, you know,
A bigger car,
physically bigger car would have been a bigger factor. I completely get your reasoning, or what you've said would have been the reasoning at Audi. I find it interesting that conversation happened and ended with that output, because
I don't know if it did, but that's just that I can simulate what the conversation might have looked like.
We know what the end product was.
Yes,
is, you know, whatever conversations were had, because yes, the previous RS4 is a standout, but prior to that, my belief of RS is turbo. I'm trying to think of the naturally aspirated RS models, and it's the B7 RS4, it's the B8 RS4.
That was it.
And yeah, I mean,
those are the only NA ones, because the R8 doesn't count. Those are the only NA ones.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I was searching for. Yeah, it's R8, isn't it? Well, sorry, E-Tron GT.
Oh, yeah, of course, very good, very good, mate.
But do you know what I mean? So it's interesting. That's kind of part of the RS identity. They stepped away from it for a generation. It worked, no question. Just interesting that they didn't make a quick revision back. Like, oh, you know, a bit like,
had the B7 not worked, they would have switched back to a bi-turbo V6. I'm pretty sure.
It feels like that to me feels like I don't know. We've gone to play football, and we've gone against a team that we're rivals with. But for this week, and this week only, we've got, you know, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi and, you know, all the best players of the world. They're going to sit on our bench, and they're going to come on for the last 10 minutes. We're going to win 19-0. Next week, they're not going to be here. we would take it as we had a blistering week. We had the B7 blistering. Why they didn't say, okay, everyone else is not going in the direction. We had a moment there, and instead decided to keep on with it. I guess, like you say, maybe it was a case of they were looking at Mercedes, kept the 6.2 for quite long. Maybe they felt that maybe the whole RS range was poised to make a sudden change to naturally aspirated, because they thought, actually, we think that's the next new direction. Just interesting that they made that call. And of course, I'm not going to say it's a mistake, because ultimately they sold lots of them, or in relative terms for the car, and some people love them. So, you know, and as someone who's a car enthusiast and who likes naturally aspirated engines because they've all gone, I'm not going to talk down about it, because I'm glad it exists now, because we don't have anything like that now. But it just feels like a slightly strange decision, 2000 and whenever they would have made it, 2010 they'd have made that decision to keep going with V8.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay.
Because the car launch is 13.
Yeah,
like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, again, I think the positive reception to the RS4, the B7, will have encouraged them to carry on with that V8 direction. Also, the R8 was sticking with the V8 at that point, so therefore they got the amortization saving of having that across 2 platforms. When the R8 was first being conceived in around 2003, at that stage, the RS4, the B7 was deemed to have to do things special. That's when the call was made for those 2 cars to share the same engine, effectively. Although the R8 version was dry sumped and the RS4 wasn't. So off to the side, and I don't want to get too long on a mention just because we've talked about the 4 quite a lot, but the RS5 also got this 4.2. So we got it in 2010. 2017. Proper sleeper car, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting to me, because I get the feeling that was the right decision. And it's an odd one, because they have a 4.2 V8 in the S5, and then they just have a more powerful, different 4.2. And I kind of get the signalling would have been quite difficult for that. When walking into an Audi dealership, let's say you want an S5. Oh, I've got a 4.2 V8 S5. Ah, very good. Have a 4.2 V8 RS5. Well, hold on. And then you have to explain, no, it's not your car. it's a different whole thing, you know.
Yeah, bear in mind when the A5 came out, the flagship, that was a really big moment for Audi 2007. The S5 engine was a standard, was a 4.2 engine available lots of other places in Audi. They needed a performance flagship to compete against in the road test and the group test of the M3 at the time, and also drive more margin. But that didn't live that long, the S5 with the V8 engine. It moved to a V6 not long after.
Yeah.
And then the RS, but I think the reasoning was that the A5 platform needed a performance flagship with things to talk about. That V8 car with the S5 was, that V8 engine was available to put into the S5.
So do you think possibly the RS4 conversation was had alongside the RS5 conversation? Because it wouldn't have made a lot of sense to put two different engines in those two cars.
Well, they shared the same platform.
Right.
So it fit in both. So you could have two different V8s in the same platform. Bear in mind, this is the period where R&D spend was crazy. They did lots of, and it was all about the brand building, the performance brand building. So Audi were investing a lot in platform complexity and engine complexity. And when we get onto the RS6, we'll talk about a really big example of that as well. Yeah. But then when the S5 came out, it was up against some very, very stiff competition because they knew the RS5 wasn't coming out till later. The RS5 with that engine was a pretty, in hindsight, a pretty special car. But compared to it being direct rival to the M3, the chassis problem kicked in again, so it didn't have the drivability, had the numb steering, so it struggled a bit. But actually, looking back today, RS5s are a bargain, if you look, especially compared to a B7 RS4. So you can get a really, really nice RS5 actually for probably not much more than about £14,000. So comparing them to B7 prices, they're amazing, and they do have the same powertrain. They are S-tronic only, the RS5s, whereas the B7 RS4 was manual only, so that's been interesting. But yeah, it's RS5. I think the problem the RS5 had was that it was directly up against things like the M3 because it's a coupe, and it wasn't the same concept. Audis don't drive like that; they're not designed to compared to.
I think they're more. I always look at them as if you go to a back road, it's BMW. If you're going to continent crush,
fair.
I need to be in London now. I need to be in Zurich tomorrow morning, and I'm leaving now.
That's the brief. Stability over 150 in those cars is incredible. So they are completely tied down, and that's what they've been designed to do. So that is the case. I mean, it did do things like active differentials at the back and those kind of things. So it did drive really, really well. The problem is it was up against a really, really strong adversary BMW.
And like you said, so 15 grand will get you an RS5.
And a fairly decent one.
That's from a reputable specialist, all that sort of stuff. So
So in terms of mechanicals, the B7 and the RS5 with that 4.2, 8,000 RPM, 450 odd horsepower engine, 420 as well. They coke up. They have issues with the FSI engine having potentially getting gunk in the cylinder head. So that's walnut blasting. You'll hear that banded around Audi RS communities quite a lot. Walnut blasting to clear out the engine. Other than that, they're pretty good, apart from the occasional coil pack. RS5 flew under the radar because RS4 got all the plaudits, and RS4 has been the big focus. So, but no, very, very, very good car. And as you say rightly, I think the brief as a continent crusher is a really good one, and that's what the car does so well.
And then we move on B9 generation.
Back to a V6.
So we go V6, 2.9. Audi, I remember, made quite a big deal at the time of saying it's a special 2.9. It was going to get quite a lot of the modifications from the 3 litre, which is why it was a smaller capacity, and the turbocharging, all that sort of stuff. That whole system was different, and that you couldn't replicate this RS model with an S, basically. And I'm going to say that's true. I think they made a lot of changes, probably very expensive changes. I wouldn't have wanted to be part of the R&D team trying to meet the budget to get there, because the RS4 here is so many things. It's also a swan song to the RS4, because we don't have the RS4 anymore. We don't know if we'll have an RS4 again. And at the same time, it's got to sort of be able to transfer into the new RS5. So these two cars are tied, their shoelaces are tied together. There's also this element of, I don't know if Audi could kind of see on the horizon the emissions changes and all these things, because the platform is the MLB Evo. So it's all everything that's happening at this point in Audi from this RS in this segment seems to be, we know what we've got, we need to push it to its nth, go with that rather than redoing everything. There's just, the future has become too unsettled, difficult. You know, we've gone into Euro 6 emissions, everything else. And because of that, you know, power is 440 horsepower, 444 horsepower, 450 PS. So we're not really stepping up, but we're getting more torque. We're getting higher fuel economy, which is a plus, because if you're going to continent crush, stopping every 15 minutes of fuel is no fun. But it sort of was delivering on the brief of, we need the RS4 to live in a space where it is the, I don't know, is it the thinking man's performance car? It's like it's a performance vehicle to go up against an M3, but if you want track days, we're not. It's almost sort of accepted that, you know, we're not going to try and compete there.
All year round usable supercar, and and our Audi had the Quattro piece nailed by that point. You know, the rear bias torque splits and all those things were quite commonplace now. More use of aluminium, lighter engine, the V6 compared to the V8. More aluminium suspension components, better weight distribution. The car drove really, really well. And the great thing is for Audi, in terms of the criticism they had going from a V8 back to a 6, I don't think was as big as BMW had when they changed the BMW M3 from a V8 back to a straight 6.
Right, yes.
So because the original RS4 was a V6.
So I think Audi could always sort of go back to this.
Yes.
You know, it's actually been favourable for Audi that just as turbocharging was basically the only way forward for performance cars, they could
and sideways.
Yes. they could use it and sort of say, well, that's the story of RS, rather than we have to do it for emissions reasons or whatever else. It's the story of RS. And BMW were having to make a dramatic change. First turbocharge in the M4 and M3, back to an inline 6, but you know, it wasn't going to be the E46 again. It's going to get heavier. It's going to have to. So they faced their own individual challenges. I kind of felt Audi in the B9, maybe they learned a little bit from the B8 as well, and they kind of. I think,
but they're a bit wounded by the V8 because it was noticeably not performing sales-wise, another question, but review-wise, people preferred, frankly, driving view preferred the V8 or the BMW Mercedes alternative, and the lacking of torque was what made the car more tricky to drive fast and just made it less.
This is the V10 M5 story all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you could see the way Audi say goodbye to the previous generation and started this generation, told its own story, because there really wasn't much fanfare as the B8 left, and the B9 got this whole rally-led, like, you know, oh, we've got the Rennsport team in, we've got, you know, we're going back to our, you know, this is the wagon that you would use on a soft course in Sweden or whatever.
Yeah,
they rode all of that wave and then gave a little nod back to the B5, and that did them a load of favours. The B8 just sort of slowly just disappeared, and there was no big. I mean, I'm sure there was.
You're right. There's no celebration. They had an Nagaro edition, I think.
Yeah, there was. I think was 35 or 45, but it really was a quiet goodbye. You know, an acceptance of probably not what we had hoped for. Yeah. As I say, RS5 gets the same treatment. I'm not sure there's anything different we can, because the RS5, it follows the same time frame, same engines, same chassis really underneath. Obviously it is changed slightly.
There was no dynamic USPs, the RS5 over the RS4.
So it's just one of you've got a dog and kids and you're going to go on continent crush. The other one, you're a couple, so you didn't say you bought the coupe.
Yeah, and you didn't want an M3 or an M4.
Right, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Does it, I'm tempted to say it did convertible RS5.
Yeah, there was.
So right, so there's, you know, there's the individual aspects there. Anything more you want to say about RS5? Because we're going to go into the last of our cars on the list next.
No, that generation. So should we choose? I want for the kind of A4, A5 type generation of RS models. Then what was your hype on? What was your favourite?
I mean, I don't want to just say the B7 because we've talked about that. I'm probably going to say the first RS5s that came out, 2010, 2011. But really because I'm a fan of that I had a spectacular drive. I was a young lad, and I said it was a sprint blue with white leather S5, and I just got to have a really enjoyable drive. And the RS5 kind of is the next knock on, if you like, down the road from that.
Pleasant experience, yeah.
Yes.
Very valid.
If I had to sort of take away that personal experience, which biases me heavily, there's something about the B5 swollen arches that make me think I'd be going slower, I'd be not as comfy, I would have less dynamism than all the other ones, and I'd enjoy it. I would be, you'd be in a road, let's just say you were in a B9 generation, the newest one, I'd be streets behind you, and I'd have a big smile on my face.
This is a rare thing, but I'm going to completely agree with you. We normally have we normally cut with different cars. We rarely cut with exactly the same one, but for all the reasons you mentioned. But there's a level of emotiveness because my cousin had one. I drove that car, and I love the Cosworth link. And there's that, and the fact that the wheel arches and the stance. Sorry, I've said it 3 times now, but it's so important. Was unbelievable. So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a B5, and I super respect having working at Audi UK at the time when the B7 was being developed. That car, amazing car. It's probably top 2 biggest RS at maybe the number 1, maybe.
Well, it's definitely going to go in that 5 garage, that 5-car garage. We said the TT RS would have a space, the Mark III. The B7 RS4 would definitely
with you. We filled the garage.
We've got 3 more, and we'll have that conversation in a minute. But we know now that there are 2 cars that have gone into that garage.
Agreed.
B7 RS4, so 2007, 2008 car, and 2019-ish, 2018, 2000. Yeah, so let's just say 2020 for the TTRS. It's such a long life. The coupe. Right. So the next car is probably the one. I will give a special mention, because we're not going to call it out separately, but the RS7 exists,
Yes, fair.
But it really is, unless you can tell me differently, it's an RS6 in everything but the top, the body on the actual...
Slightly wider, slightly different wheelbase, but you're completely right. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no point in interjecting.
So there isn't...
All the tech, everything, same. Yeah.
So there isn't... Is there anything about an RS7... if you were to go around a track, apart from the fact that it's slightly lighter probably, is there anything that would really have to be mentioned?
No.
The same?
So the track and wheelbase are slightly different. Mechanical is the same, horsepower is the same. I think the quoted performance figures are basically identical. So
that's fine. I just wanted to make sure, because as we speak about the RS6s, we are essentially talking about the RS7 too. I just want to make that clear to everyone, because I don't want to do all the RS6s and then say, well, RS7.
No. Absolutely fair.
RS6. This begins on the C5 generation. If you are a big fan of the main channel, then there's a guide to every single generation of the RS6 now. So the C5 is where things start. So I have probably more mixed feelings on the C5 than maybe you do, because it's the one that I have the least experience with. I have actually driven one. It was a long time ago, and it probably wasn't like the best example. It was just a trade-in when I was selling cars. It was maybe 7-8 years at the time, and it was at a time when they didn't get the appreciation that the RS badge now has, because we were only on the 2nd gen RS at the time, 6, when I drove that car, and it had started to have some problems. We know that if you're going to buy an RS6, the C5 is probably the one that has
currently the most problematic.
Yeah, and is likely. Well, we'll go on to the C6 in a second, but the C5 has some very individual problems. Great looking thing. It took a fairly underwhelming A6 chassis at the time. The A6 gets facelifted, and I don't. When I look at what was out at the time for BMW and Mercedes, I do feel that Audi might have misstepped a little bit with this A6 at the time. It wasn't the worst looking thing in the world. It was just they both had some identity to their car that the A6 felt like it was looking for.
Yeah, it was trying to carving its own kind of period, that A6. That A6 came in 1997. The C5 generation RS6 came very late in the life cycle. Yes. So it came in 2002, and really the volumes started coming through in 2003. So that was quite a lot of firsts for Audi and RS. So it was the first automatic RS. It was the first RS available with a saloon body style.
Quick quiz for you. What was the top speed? The regular one was 155.
Yeah. There was a D restrict. There was a plus.
Plus, very good.
I think it's 174.
Very good.
Thank you. Wow. Okay.
Very
cool.
good.
Well, I only know because I was working there at the time when we launched the RS6 Plus. So don't get too excited. But yeah, the C5 was a really interesting one. This is where it's because they had the S6 out already. With a 4.2, so 340 PS. And actually, it actually had a completely different body shell. So if you look at the side of a 4.2 litre, be it a standard 4.2 A6, an S6 or an RS6, they've got a significantly longer front overhang to make more space for the V8 engine. And having a longer front overhang means the engine's even further forward. So the RS6 was, of all the RS cars in terms of dynamism, was probably one of the most compromised ones. And I am hands up, I have been an owner. I have owned a C5 RS.
Have you owned a C5? No, and I guess the reason I'm going to be harsh on all the RSs, well, as harsh as I can be, some of them I absolutely love, is just, if you really have a passion for something, you need to give it as hard a kick in the shins as you possibly can when it comes to talking to other people about it. Because otherwise, like I did when you asked me about the A4, A5, you bring in your own personal bias. You've got this great story of this drive. Sure. So you would buy what is probably the worst car, but it's special to you. And there's something, like I'm critical of how the A6 looked, but the RS6, it's like someone went, well, you know what, lads, I think I'm just going to kick it in every single direction possible, and I'm going to turn out something that people are not going to forget. And it's what you get. And I have to say kudos to Audi, because it was only going to be it was right at the end. Like people, I would have thought most people who had bought an A6, what was it, 97?
It came out on RS.
So they bought a 97 one when it came out and they were excited. Then the facelift was 2000, 2001. They've probably forgotten by 2002.
They existed, exactly the reason for bringing it out.
But puts, this is where most manufacturers paint a stripe on it and call it the final one. Audi have gone, right, we're going to have to do a lot of re-engineering here.
There's the competitive environment was, I think, what really drove Audi at that point. Right. So what you had then is you had a car that no one's ever heard of in this podcast called the E39 M5. and that was, I'll
have to look that one up.
I've never heard of that before in my life. That was really, and I drove one of the last ones because we did a comparison of the RS6 against that car. Very, very different cars, but they had to do something dramatic to give that car a real push into the next generation of A6. And it was also a time where Audi were actually feeling literally and figuratively quite powerful. So it's a brand really growing very, very fast. So they could actually do the RS6. Now the RS6 wasn't as hard as we might think because we already had the S6, and the S6 is always planned with the 4.2 V8 and the different body shell, those kind of things.
So does the S6 have the same body shell as the RS6?
Yeah, but technically no, because the RS6 had the wider arches, the S6 didn't have to that extent. So there was actually three different body shells in the A6. It's pretty complex.
It's even worse.
That's right.
Can you imagine? Guys, we've already stumped up the cash to do the standard one and the S one. We would like to stump up even more cash to do a third one, which we're only going to sell for a couple of years to a few people.
Exactly. But it was the response. But actually, it did probably kind of land the RS brand pretty strongly as being a proper Q car with some real cred. And, so the C5 RS6 was in a film called Layer Cake before just around the time it launched. With Daniel Craig, and that went down pretty well. It's considered pretty cool, kind of, we discussed before about a bit of a kind of cool bank robber's car. But the RS6 wasn't subtle installations, pretty similar to the first RS2 and RS4, in the sense of it was basically take that 4.2 V8, stick a couple of pairs of turbos on it, you add 110 PS, so 450 PS. You say you've upgraded the gearbox, but probably not enough to give it longer term durability. You put a form of DRC suspension on which has some issues, the adaptive dampers, those kind of things. So reliability of those cars has made them used quite cheap.
Okay.
And there's ways around it. So you can actually do a whole manual swap conversion.
When I did the guide for this, I think actually I mention it. I don't go too far into it because it's a whole aftermarket thing. It's not
not factory. And never did a manual factory RS6.
Are you basically taking the S6 stuff? Is that what you're essentially doing for the manual swap in the RS6?
Oh, I'd have to go and check that. Maybe potentially, because the S6 was available as a manual.
I think from memory, the reason you can do it is because there is all the bits out there for the S6, and you kind of modify that, but you're not having to do too much re-engineering.
That'd make a lot of sense.
Plug and play, and swapping bits out.
And it does help solve the issue, because I think it wasn't a question of if the gearbox was going to be an issue; it was when on that car.
And this it goes like a trio of problems. So it's got an air suspension known issue, gearbox,
adaptive suspension.
The adaptive, sorry, you're right.
Variable dampers.
Gearbox, and then the engine. Being the size it was, the fact it was wedged in there, there's a few major jobs that are needed, and they're all very, very difficult, pretty much engine out.
Because access is quite limited. But then we see that on a few cars. And in fairness, there's ways around those. So my experience in the 9 months I had my C5 was very positive. And there was always the concern, though, about the issue with the gearbox. But the interior was stunning. The glass area was stunning. It felt like it was never designed to be an RS in all the most positive ways.
Right. I was going to say, this is why I wanted to give it start this with giving it a bit of a kick in the shins, because it's like, at the end of the day, it's basically a modified car from Audi. And the best cars, and I don't know if I've said it, and I've said it so many times, the best cars you can buy almost always, from a point of view of fun, not numbers, not top trunks cars to take to your mates, fun on the road, you on a back road, are the ones that the manufacturer probably didn't plan on making, and then suddenly someone told them a business plan, Owen talked them into some nonsense.
It's happened a few times, yes.
And all of a sudden you find yourself in a dealership shaking hands on a car that no one had thought was going to be there.
Yeah.
And those are usually the ones, and this RS6 is.
I think you're right. I think it was the demeanor and the incongruity and the unusualness of it to drive. Again, I've owned it, so it's not much cop. The steering completely lacking in any kind of feel. Feels very, very nose heavy, but I still love driving it. How it made me feel.
Yeah,
and that's the intangible. So actually, contemporary road test at the time, it was nowhere close in terms of drivability to an M5, for example. But in terms of overall appeal, people really liked the C5 RS6. Right. I don't really know anyone who didn't like it. It's had some issues as cars age going on with it, but the ones you've rightly mentioned, those are the concerns. But there's ways around those things, and I still think the car will have a longer term history and longer term classic status for that car, because the design and the overall stance is amazing.
Do you think the Plus, very, very quickly, so we can move on to the next one?
Sure.
Because the Plus was only out months, basically. Yeah, it was an 04 car.
Yeah.
Obviously, they up the top speed, they give it a little bit more power, and all
graphite wheels, black optic pack. Yeah.
Do you think that was something that was a real this has gone a lot better than we thought at the time, let's celebrate it?
It was always.
I think it was planned.
Kind of Quattro GmbH, the RS team was messing around a bit. That he'd get a bit more power out of the engine.
So why not?
Okay. I think also the price point, the competitive vehicles moved up a bit, and they felt like it was a good way to celebrate it. Also, the communication color, one of them was sprint blue, and it looked amazing in that color. So it was lovely. I remember when we released the car, and it was the Audi was so strong at that point. It was great. I think the car pretty much sold out very, very quickly. It wasn't a tough sell. I think it was over £70,000 at the time, which was quite a strong amount of money for that kind of car at the time.
I mean, now people don't blink an eye at that.
No,
that's cars.
But I think it was strong punchy money. And also there was no discounts on RS6s to anyone. You could be the king and you wouldn't.
So I know that if you work at an Audi dealer, you can't have an RS6.
Yeah.
So it's the one car.
We couldn't buy them. We couldn't buy them internally. We had a staff purchase scheme where they weren't available.
So you had to go, if you wanted one, you need to go into Audi dealers,
go into retail,
and go and buy it.
And the noise around that car was really, really strong. And bear in mind, it was doing really, really well at a time when the E39 M5 existed, and the drivability of the car was not much cop, but it felt really special to drive, but just not in the ways that we would normally expect. So I love my C5, but I'd say if you're going to buy a C5, go careful. Dampers, gearbox, and the other things you mentioned as well.
So interestingly, another friend of mine who worked at Audi was there for this next era of Audi, which is when they put a V10 into it. I don't know how much of this comes off the back of BMW put the V10 in. I don't know how much of it was this idea of we've got to go further than we went before, and how much of it was just this era of cars, 05 to 15, will stand. I think in 50 years, 100 years, people will still pinpoint this moment in time. And it's because of
horsepower race.
Exactly. And manufacturers all got there. Yeah, manufacturers today, not to knock them, because they're doing it because they have to, and because, you know, engineers will always find answers. And if you put a lot of smart people in the room, they're probably going to come up with the same sort of answer, if that is the sort of, you know, the tip of the pyramid. At this point, though, everyone was doing it in different ways. And that was the remarkable thing here. So turbocharged V10 in 2 tons worth of C6 RS6. And again, I'm trying to find that out. So it came out in 08 and it was done.
I remember the press release clearly. We were all stunned. Even knowing what Audi could do, we were like, wow. I mean, I'd been gone a few years by that point. It's an amazing car.
There is a plus version to that car. I think it's plus or performance version. I can't remember. I put it on the guide. I haven't got it in front of me here, but which put on carbon brakes and stuff like that. And again, basically followed the same formula they had on the C5.
A massive power jump.
Yeah, I mean, so this today is still talked about. So you were 444 horsepower in the C5. Yes, there was a plus, but because it was so limited at the very end, I mean, it's a limited of a limited car. So we're just going to go 444 and then and weighing sort of 1850 kilos. And then we jump up and we go 573 with 150 kilo weight gain. It's in one generation. What I'm very used to seeing in cars is a horsepower jump between 30 and 50 over a generation. This is, I think they were trying to scale it back.
Over 100, yeah.
Because well, the plus I think does go to 600. You know, it's just, there's so much power coming from this thing. Regularly, and it also is both a sedan and a wagon.
It is.
And I think that is the last time, yeah, because the RS7
just a van after that
comes back after this. So what did you think about this car today is special, and what do you think's not special about it?
Oh, blimey. It was very, I think you're right. The positioning of the cars, the pinnacle was of the horsepower race. So really, really pushing it. What was special? Well, what special wasn't special. People seem to think it was a Lamborghini engine. So there was lots of talking about Lamborghini engines. So the S6 at the time also had a V10 engine, but naturally aspirated one. There was some components shared, but actually it was different. They twin turbocharged this engine. It was really a really tough job to package it. There wasn't the front overhang difference in this generation of A6 compared to the previous one when the RS models.
Can we just take a second? Because I agree with you that you're right. It's not, there is this thing, and it's basically become folklore that it's a Lamborghini engine. Is that just because Lamborghini also have a 5-litre V10 and there is elements of these cars that are the same, or these engines? Yeah,
there's elements that are the same. But it was very different, even on the S6 compared to the Lamborghini V10.
Yeah,
so I think they were all 5.2 V10s. The S6 had 450 horsepower, which is the same horsepower as the previous generation RS6. There was a great big jump up when they twin turbocharged it. Again, not particularly subtle, although it was a proper FSI engine, to the next level, really. So they also had a bit more torque split on the torsion four-wheel drive system, but the engine was still very far over the front wheels. So in answer to your question about what's special and not special, the dynamics were not special particularly. It was a sledgehammer car.
Yeah, okay. A continent crusher.
Yeah, and amazing. And what was special, back to the design, it looked incredible. It had the wide wheel arches. It had a really nice set of design of wheels, and it had things like unique headlights with unique DO. They'd really been thorough. So the things they changed on the RS6 compared to the standard A6 at the time were quite extensive.
I think I remember seeing Richard Hammond on Top Gear
in the snow.
In the snow, and it was like one of their challenges. And it was a blue. I don't know if it was Sprint Blue or whether it was one of the other.
It wasn't Sprint Blue. It was a darker shade.
It was a darker shade, wasn't it? And there is yeah, I actually do know the name, but I've forgotten the name, so I don't know the name. But I remember seeing that episode and thinking that cemented in my head, an RS is a continent crusher. I'm pretty sure I was going to drive it 1,000 miles, whatever. But it started off, like you say, in the snow.
As long as the cons had lots of petrol stations on the way.
Yeah, if you live in one of the sort of really big states in the US.
That sounds silly to talk about an RS model because none of them are particularly frugal, but my goodness, that could glide it back.
If you want to lap Australia and you're going to be in some areas with big gaps, then maybe the 2-litre TDI would be
But what a thing. I mean, incredible. I just remember the press during the press shots and the press release. They got it just right in terms of visual and the menace.
So we're saying the engine was special.
Yeah.
We can take away some of the...
Because Lamborghini never buy a turbo that engine. They only ever went NA.
Yeah.
Audi on their version of the V10.
But what's not special is they could never really make it some sort of dynamic M5 track beater.
No.
And I think we're being fair to it there. And is there anything to add on this generation? I feel like we're cutting it a bit short after talking about the C5, but it's one of those cars. The C5 has the same problem. They're only around for 2 years. Yes, there's a plus. That basically just ticks all the boxes that you could tick on the standard one. Ups the power slightly.
No chassis changes on that one.
No, there's just this idea of they probably had gone. This almost feels like to me that someone at Audi had got permission to do it. You know, they sort of said, I think we should do this, and got enough yeses all the way up the chain. And then it was out the front. And someone got in and went, my goodness, we can't sell this.
Yeah.
This is insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And because of that, they were probably so taken aback of an incredible achievement that they've made. They thought, well, what else? We're not going to fiddle with it anymore because what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you
go?
You know? And I say that with a great amount of respect and reverence for it. I think this is one of those cars. So I have driven one, but it again, long time ago, long time ago, and it wasn't the most. Maybe because of the car that it was, maybe because of the power it was. I didn't go. You know, I don't know where you would enjoy it. It's not something to really take on the back road.
Doesn't that say it all? I mean, you don't. There's some of the best cars, ones that are really fun to drive when you're not driving, like your trousers.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's about it's again sledgehammer car, GT car, all these things, all very valid, and people love their V10 RS6s.
Yeah.
They're totally justified.
Maybe the feeling, and again, this is something that EVs really struggle with this part, which is you could be in this RS6, put your toe down, and you feel like there's so much thunder and power. You've accelerated with 10% of that power, but you get the feel that you have so much more.
And that is an awesome feeling.
And the trouble with EVs is they can't transmit that to you as well. They're either giving you the power or they're not. So if you get a 900 horsepower EV, it can be 900 horsepower, or
there's a lot of the latent powertrain aggression in an EV compared to that kind of car.
You know, yeah, and that's exactly the wording.
And depending on your taste in cars, I'm going to transmit this up. I like cars that are engaging to drive. I'm a chassis guy. That's what I like. But I've learned from the companies I've worked for, there's definitely a place for absolute ridiculous levels of horsepower in a heavy car. It's absolutely very exciting in a very, very different way.
And that is, you know,
that's great. And this is the ultimate pinnacle of it. And you can tune it and you can map it. Again, the engine's very packed in there. So the cooling can, you know, if you start upping the boost up, it can be difficult. There's also there's a heck of a job where if you need to replace a seal, the whole engine's got to come out. Basically, the problem is with that car is the parts supply now for a lot of the parts in that car, you consider is actually quite tight. It's quite hard to get hold of some parts. Anything that happens in the engine, I'm being a bit flippant, but anything that happens in the engine, you need to drop the engine.
Right.
To get access to anything, pretty much. And that is a huge task. So a lot of the cars, they're not that expensive, V10 RS6s now, especially for a higher mileage on for that reason. They are monstrously scary to work on. And that's just through the parts supply issue for some of the mechanical components. But no, amazing sledgehammer car, but it's not the one that jumps off the page to me, even with that power.
To everyone watching, you've lost me again, and that's because the camera is overheated again.
You get me again.
Yes. So don't worry, I am aware.
videos.
You'll have me back in a minute. I'm just going to let the battery. It's funny actually because it's got a power supply going into it, but if it overheats where the battery store is, it will just shut itself off, and it gives you a load of warnings. But obviously, I can't see them because I'm talking to you. It just shows how hot it is at the minute because we haven't had this problem previously. But let's move on, shall we, to the C7 generation. You're not allowed to talk about it, Owen.
Be still my beating heart, but I will allow you to speak about it.
Not very good, is it? No one wants this one.
Oh, how much space in that 5-car garage? I might put 2 in there. Carry on.
I think after everything we've just said about the V10 RS6, I think the V10 RS6 is a special vehicle because it stands out for only existing for a couple of years in a place that no one will ever go back to. Okay,
fair.
And it's not so much that it was trying to dictate what this car should be. It was trying to monster forward with progression, and it did it. But the C7 RS6 almost rewrote the rule book on what a fast wagon could be, because it no longer was, oh, you have to choose. Okay, you can have a sledgehammer or you can have a back road car. Now, I'm not saying it's a Lotus Elise. Okay, that would be ridiculous. But this is where the RS6 becomes a car that if you need a wagon, great. But if you don't need a wagon, people still want it. People still love it. People still desire it. And I think the fact that a lot of them did bank jobs and got nicked and played into some
high-profile videos on YouTube.
Yes, exactly that. But it all sort of built up underneath it to say that this is the one that, for those not paying attention, Audi were not willing to not be seen any longer. It launches with the A6. I think it comes a year after the launch. So it's a completely rethink of how RS...
bringing it into the start of the life cycle. Yeah.
And the one thing it doesn't fail to deliver is it realizes I must do thunder in a straight line. Okay, that brief has existed for the RS6. I can't give it up. Giving it up would be, maybe BMW could give it up and somehow get away with it if they were so incredible on the back road. They never have with the M5. They've always gone further and further up the power space. But this car is where you kind of think someone at Audi said, look, we've done the power, we've done the barnstorming. Can we try and go to the other side of the triangle and elevate the performance drive so that people are not big on the straights, heavy on the anchors, turning in any way they can, and then big on the straights again. This is the one where it's sort of like, look guys, this thing has got to chase after an RS4. Yeah, it's got to chase after a TTRS. That's what we're building it for. And they delivered on the brief to such a strength that I think if they could go back there, they would. But emissions and safety and everything else means we can't have the C7 again. But it turned up at a time, I think, following a V10 downsize as well, probably a tough act if you're in that room.
So what was said earlier about cars always get heavier for the next generation?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But so
yeah,
it really sort of looked at everything that the V10 had brought and all the headlines that the V10 had got, and went, well, we're not going to be able to do that all over again, but I think we can do something else, and then did it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think basically they said they don't want to do that again, in a sense of the horsepower race effectively isn't over per se, but they want to be cleverer and more sophisticated. And by that point, the RS6, I think at C5 level, was still quite sophisticated. The C6 was a bit more more aggressive. It still has that kind of understated cool to a point if you've got a dark color at least. But then this version was actually, as you rightly say, adding dynamism back into the mix. So the engine was a 4-litre bi-turbo V8 hot side inside, really, really good throttle response. So less turbo lag because the turbo was on the inside of the V, which meant the intake was shorter. So the turbo lag that affected the previous cars. The V10 had some had some turbo lag. It wasn't AU, and then the C5 did as well. It just seemed to address all of the issues from the previous cars and gave it a really good level of engagement. So the engine was smaller and lighter, and the horsepower was less than the C6. So we dropped down to 560 horsepower.
Yeah, 560. There is the performance model.
Yes, it came later.
So later on
they put it back in, but I think that it was almost quite deliberate.
But it only meets what the plus of the previous. So there is no power gain, even in the hottest version of this from the old generation.
So, and that was actually, I think, quite deliberate from Audi at the time to say, look, we're actually dropping horsepower. They knew the pluses were coming and they were going to bump the horsepower home again, but it was quite a big statement of intent saying we're actually dropping the horsepower down and we're focusing more on dynamism. And if you look at the numbers, even though the horsepower dropped, I think the weight was slightly less on the C7 potentially compared to the V10.
So, I'll get that up for you.
I don't know if it's certainly similar, but the big jump forward actually was something far less exciting than a all new V8 bi-turbo engine. It was actually gearbox, because they switched from a 6-speed ZF Auto to a new 8-speed ZF Auto, the iconic 8 HP gearbox, incredible gearbox. And that in itself made the shift so fast and so rapid, up to like DSG style shifts, that actually the 0 to 60 time of the RS6 the first time dropped below 4 seconds. I believe it was the quickest RS ever to date, that one. So the acceleration was phenomenal, and the take. Bear in mind, Mercedes were a kind of a form of clutch 7-speed at the time. The gearbox was used in a lot of different vehicles, including Bentleys, was such a big jump forward. Also, the first RS6 model with a form of torque vectoring rear differential, and I know I keep on coming back to that, but it makes such a difference to the dynamism. So you've got a lighter front engine, more throttle response, and more agile, better steering, and then this differential action at the back, and meant the drivability was so much more three-dimensional than the fairly two-dimensional drivability of the C6. So it was far more than just a GT car, and I think that's why it's gained such critical acclaim.
It is actually officially the same weight.
Right, okay.
It's interesting.
But they could knock a kilo off, because they could say it was lighter, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, 25 kilos is lighter.
Oh, okay.
I was rounding, but right, there's 25 kilos.
It matters. It really matters, because they could say that in the press release. Peter Atton would have said that. So it's lighter, So there's a balance of attributes, and what that did was, if you think about the C6, the V10 bi-turbo, it was not considered more drive focused and all those kind of things that than the M5 and the equivalent Mercedes at the time, the AMG version. But it was still very much well regarded. They sold a load of them. So no takeaway from the C6. It was a very successful car for Audi. The C7, just, I think, big statement, because it up against some really stiff competition, went to top of the class in the D segment.
Do you think the C7 was the point where they became, I hate to put it this way because it makes it talks down about the other generations, but do you think it's the one that made them mainstream?
RS mainstream?
As in, you've got 100 grand to spend on a car. When the C6 era was around, if you're shopping S-Class 7 Series, those are the only things in your stratosphere, in your head.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean.
And then in this generation, for whatever reason, it gained a wider audience. So it wasn't just you and me who are saying we're massive petrol heads that want to always have to have the thing. There was people that possibly didn't, this was their first RS. They weren't necessarily shopping to have the RS, but they had been around the sort of high-end stuff. Maybe they'd looked at a Panamera, and then someone had said, well, the RS6 is worth having a look at. And
I think you've hit something really interesting there.
And I add to it because the RS7 was around for the markets that didn't have RS6.
I haven't thought of it that way before. So, and I think you're right. I think it's exactly happened, because the C7 generation A6 was such a huge jump forward. And I've owned a lot of them. And the interior execution and quality was definitely from the segment above. So the RS6 was, for people who didn't want who could easily afforded an A8 or an S8 or those kind of things, didn't want anything quite so big, wants something a bit cooler, a bit more practical, because you couldn't get an A8 Avant, for example. There was all saloons bigger than that. And the execution was so beautiful in that car. I mean, it was really nicely put together.
RS6 was cool.
Oh yeah, that's very cool as well.
If you're 20 years old, you're a footballer, 20 years old, you have some money. RS6
you're right.
Cool.
It's probably the broadest demographic. That RS6 could appeal to the broadest number of customers to date, maybe of any Audi RS model. So yeah, really great, really nicely put. I'd say that Yeah, for me, the interior, you and I regularly talk about peak car.
Yeah.
The interior of a C7 of an Audi A6 is unbelievably good.
It's the classic thing of it's everything you wanted.
Yeah.
It's not a bit more.
Yeah.
It's everything you wanted.
Yeah.
And nothing you didn't need. And after this, we go on a journey. Like the whole car world is on a journey now, trying to rediscover what that is for the next generation. Because we shouldn't look at it in isolation. When we say that, that's Owen and I saying that, and a lot of people around us saying that. But in 50 years, people might say it about cars from 2040. You know, it's all relative. I'm sure there's people who think the best car interiors were from 1947.
But you're right. We're talking about peak car in the context of now, but I think we are actually going to see an improvement in car interior. So you're right. I think
I think a lot of manufacturers will look at that era, and it's why we distinguish it as peak car, because they'll look at that era and go, you know, even if you work at the manufacturer, if you get in one of your museum cars or however you
vehicle fleet,
your heritage cars, you haven't got to be someone who's loves, you know, hates all new things. Clearly not if you work at a manufacturer. But you must get in it and go, God, we did this so right. You know, and that I think drives the next era of cars. Of who, you know, I get maybe the screen was a little bit small, and maybe people do demand more than that, or maybe these dials are not that, you know, little plasticky things, they're not that great. But what could we do? What could we take from this? And yeah, this car is that one. And particularly if you get in the RS6, you've got the carbon fiber everywhere. It feels like an interior that could be
diamond quilting.
Yeah. So it's no longer like that's the sporty one only. It does step into, not entirely. I don't want people to think I'm saying it's an S-Class. It's not. But it's just dipping its toe into the waters that are usually. I've heard people, you know, talk online about they sold their Range Rover for an RS6, and you think that's not a similar purchase, you know. But people made that, you know, they were willing to make that, and vice versa as well. You know?
But I think at that point it was the most successful RS6 to date in terms of sales volume. Also, that had a longer life cycle, and they developed it right from the outset.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think that interior really justified the price point of that car, which again have gone up. And I think it was a nicer interior than the equivalent Mercedes and BMW at the time, from my humble experience. And but again, I have got a skin in the game on this car. Everything
we say on that one really goes for the RS7. Of course, power is slightly different on that car's acceleration is slightly different, but overall very, very similar. So yeah, everything we say goes for the RS, because like the US, for example, they didn't get the RS6, they got the RS7.
And the RS7's a damn fine car. All the mechanical components that made the RS6, the same engine, everything, that made the RS6 so dynamic, really, really worked for the RS7. And the RS7 does kind of look like nothing else. It's beyond a CLS. It really is a special thing. And for me, worked much better as an RS7 than it did as an S7. But yeah, really great car.
That takes us on to the last car.
Oh, we've got to leave the RS7, C7 behind. Okay.
So the C8 generation.
Yes.
Comes along. I just have to clarify, it doesn't take the old engine, does get a new engine. That's I put that on the guide recently. It's gets confused sometimes, but it is a different engine in the C8 generation. MLB Evo platform. I would say very much an evolution. It's marginal moves forward at this point.
It's electrical architecture.
It's electrical architecture. It's a bit more standard power. It's 30 horsepower increase as standard. So it's actually, the standard one comes out less powerful than the performance of the previous generation. Any idea, by the way, just very quickly, Owen, why does the Plus name get dropped and performance name get picked up? Any idea?
Oh, blimey.
They did a Plus for 2 generations. And then
they did. So hold on. So they did a
C5, C6.
Right, so for Plus, yes,
Plus.
They did an S8 Plus as well, and then they switched to Performance. I think it's basically because Plus was being confused as a trim specification rather than actually a credible performance improvement.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So Performance actually demonstrated the fact there was a dynamic and power change. So yeah, Plus is, but interesting, that was quite a big, dropping Plus is a bit sad really, because actually that's a long history at Audi, and some of the coolest cars they've done have been Pluses. So that was a bit of a loss. But yeah, I think from a marketing perspective, having the performance moniker is more clearly aligns to what the content is.
Yeah.
So customers might perceive Plus as just being an option pack.
I did say, sorry, at this point, it's the last car. It's technically not, because we've already mentioned it, but the RS5, we will cover the Avant, the newest car, but we'll do that very quickly because it's only just come out.
Sure.
This C8 generation, so it comes out as a mild hybrid system. It's the whole new electrical architecture system.
It's a very mild hybrid.
Very
Starter motor hybrid. So it's not like a hybrid inverted commas. It's starter motor hybrid, which is fine. It's still very valid.
It makes the car bigger, okay, physically larger, wider. Some people don't like that. Some people are critical of that. Some people do like that. It is heavier because of that. Around 100 kilos, just over 100 kilos is added to the weight. So it's like carrying a passenger in the C7. Some people will view this car as what it is, which is a move forward, but not a leap. Other people will view it as it solved whatever issue that they had with the C7. Those people are harder on the ground to find, I think. I think most people will see the C7 as a standout, but a few people didn't like it or were critical of it for one reason or another, and will feel the C8. I think the C8 actually took the car even closer, as the C7 had managed to bring them a few of those, as say a Range Rover owner or an S-Class owner that wanted quilted leather and they were happy with it. I think they realised that they could do that again, and so they moved just another toe closer to that side, not giving up any aspect of being RS, but just realising that not only were they trying to attract those buyers, but also they were going to go to the USA with the car. And the first time they were going back to the USA since the C6 generation was there. So C5 was there, C6 I think they got as, well, I could be wrong actually. They might have just got the S6, but C5 they got. So big gap, and then they come back. Is there anything, if you were trying to pick between these two, I know which decision you did make. But is there anything that would make you look at it and say the C8 can one-up the C7 in particular areas?
Really good.
Because ultimately they're different cars.
You nailed it in a sense of it was a different engine with a mild hybrid. I'm not sure how much that added other than slightly quicker acceleration, those kind of things.
It's all marginal. It really is all marginal.
There was not a big dynamic jump because you already had things like torque vectoring and really good suspension choices, choice 2 suspension settings on the C7. I was thinking as you were talking there, what's the thing that springs to my mind when I think about the C8 compared to the C7? And that for me is that you lost physical AC HVAC controls to a second screen, so it became more screen heavy. Yeah. Whether that's progress or not, I'll let everyone else decide. So it certainly had a very long life cycle, and I think you're right. It wasn't an innovation jump. It was very much a kind of Kaizen step-by-step improvement over C7, which is a huge kudos to C7. So C8 is a better car than C7. It optimizes anything negative on the C7. They resolved. Very small list of those things resolved on the C8, and the performance and the drivability took it to the next level. So amazing car. But the thing, if you ask me what the difference was, it was the interior was actually the biggest change for that car.
The thing I think I would be critical of it about is because it was going to go to the US and to other markets, it got quite like the C7. I told you about this, but when I first saw it, 2014, I aware it had been released, I saw my first one parked in a car park at the very back of the car park in the corner, and the thing took up the entire space. Yeah. Edge to edge, it took up the entire space. And I thought, that thing is massive. 10 years on, this is so wide now that if you're in the UK, you probably get it in a supermarket car parking space because they're quite standardized, but all your sort of little areas or gyms and stuff like that try and
massive wheel arches.
Just a real challenge to get into, and because of that to get out of.
Can you get 22s on it? Or is it
yes.
Yes. So an RS6 on 22s, those big wheel arches, are very aggressive.
People do fit those wheels onto the C7.
Really?
They do actually fit.
Oh, don't tempt me.
They don't. They look a bit too big, I think, on the C7. Because the car's that big.
I did grow up in Hackney, right? Can you have wheels that
rubber bands for tyres? Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah. that would be my only real criticism of it. Like you say, it's not a case of it's a worse car, better car, worse car. It's not that. There are some changes that are made because of modernisation. I think the only thing you can really sort of say is it just got very big.
Are we on to Golf Mark 8 versus Golf Mark 7.5?
This is the conversation again.
It's the conversation again. Yeah. And it's because there was the C7 was such a big jump over C5. Sorry, C6.
Yeah.
Huge jump in terms of, but not for the things you expect an RS Audi to make the jump for.
Right.
Less horsepower, less weight, better car, bizarre. Yeah. And so therefore there wasn't the big disruptive point to the C8. So effectively what that meant is in the context of the media, they were like, yeah, great car, nice improvement. You know, Top Gear drove it, everyone loved it and all this thing. Still very strong against Mercedes. It just wasn't the great big innovation jump that C7 was over the C6. So you're right. But fair play to Audi. They knew they'd nailed the C7. I think they'd seen the customer feedback. They'd seen the breadth of the customer you alluded to earlier. Times they're appealing to more people than ever before, trading out Range Rovers. It was the C8 started to go in the direction of more technology, so heavier electrical architecture, active anti-robots, all those kind of things. But the extra screen started to appear in the car, which I don't think anyone thought added much extra customer value other than being able to say technology. Right. So,
and also then Swan Song is the GT model.
Yes, that's quite a thing.
Yes, and I suppose I don't want to make it the Swan Song of our podcast because we've still got a couple of bits to do, but I don't think there's anything more to say about the C8.
I would say that on the C8, the GT, the Swan Song, it was the most thorough. So it went far beyond what Performance did and what Plus did.
Yes.
So because they changed a lot of things on the dynamic side of the car. So adjustment of suspension, calibration, those kind of things. So it's very thorough dynamically. You had the big Larry Quattro paint job.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You could have a subtle one as well. There was a grey.
Yes. So you could so therefore kudos to Audi again for going all out with that car because the C8 weren't broke. It drove brilliantly well and it was really competitive against the M because the M5 had gone to four-wheel drive at that point as well, right?
Yeah.
And it'd gone to a V8 engine back from a V10. So the M5 was suffering from a bit of, perception of it not being as hardcore.
Yeah.
That GT was very, very thorough. So yeah, that was the most extreme upgrade plus point to an RS I think we'd had to date.
Yeah, I think the GT actually proves the point that I'm saying is that they realised that more and more people were buying the C8 RS6 for reasons other than they had expected.
Yes.
But they want to give one final nod to those people that have been with them for the whole journey.
I go with that.
And by giving them the GT, because realistically, you walk into an Audi dealer and say, I want a 2025 RS6. They go, we've got this one that's painted quite wildly and it's stripped out and all this sort of stuff. They go, I want a fast, A8 or whatever with more room for my dogs. They don't buy it. But that person that had a C5, traded it in for C6, traded in for C7, stuck around. When they got the phone call from the dealer, look, just so you know, the C8's going. We don't know when we're getting the replacement, but we've got a GT special thing. Do you want it?
That's a hell of a conversation to have.
Oh.
But then they say, how much is it? Why is it 160?
Yeah, it was a big jump.
It was like beyond Bentley money.
Yeah.
But
then
thorough.
Yeah.
If they're doing so few units, they put such big R&D investment into dynamic aspects that are really expensive to do. They've got to revalidate a lot of things to do that.
Yeah,
you have to charge that price.
I wouldn't be surprised if on the GT they weren't really making a lot of money.
I go with that,
right. The latest RS model is the RS5, which is a lot of firsts, but it's a step away. So it's plug-in hybrid. Goes to the 2.9 V6. It moves pricing up quite dramatic. I mean, all cars have been on this trajectory, but I do wonder what the future of Audi RS is for we started at RS3. Okay. So if you're a youngish or, you're one of those people that you save, you like to buy things cash, you can get into the RS journey with the RS3. Okay. Whether it's used, new, whatever, that's the starting point for most people that gets them hooked. There's obviously the used RS4s and everything else like that. In this RS5, we know an RS6 is coming, so it'll have to be positioned above this. So this car in the UK is going to start £90,000, 100.
Still cheaper than the RS3 run out.
And then the Vorsprung performance model is £101,000. But it's the first to go. So it will be a saloon and a estate, but it's the first to go plug-in hybrid, and that means that I've given you power figures, and we ended at sort of 600 there. It's more powerful. It's more. I don't know a point where you could say RS4 came out with more power than the previous generation RS6. They've always been separated. You know, the RS6 is kind of here, and the RS4 is chasing, but it's behind. Here, RS5's just came out and gone.
So we know what's going to happen to the next gen RS6.
I hate to think what the RS6 is.
We can guess. We know what it's going to powertrain it's going to have.
I think it's going to have to be a plug-in hybrid.
It's the Urus powertrain.
Yeah.
Urus Evo.
I just wonder what horsepower they will give the RS6, because they'd be very tempted to put 4 figures on a sheet of paper.
8.
I think it will be
with an 8 would be
I think it will be an 8.
probably.
But what I'm kind of saying is, let's say they launched a car with 820 horsepower as an example. 3 years in, they facelift it and they go, well, we can put a slightly, get a few more kilowatts out of the battery, so then it's 850 or 870. Or we do a performance model. And then you've got the run out in 5-6 years time, and they go, well.
I was saying this when the C7 came out. I was like, oh, it's loads of horsepower, but the chassis could take it.
Yeah.
Modern chassis tech. You got rear wheel steering, active roll bars.
We have been given a glimpse of what the RS6 will be, because the all-road, oddly, the all-road has been given the wide body RS6, what we know is going to be the RS6 shell.
Good call.
Which is just an interesting one. I know the RS6, the A6 all-road has always had flared and stuff like that. But I don't know that it's ever had the
wide
RS,
body in white. It's going to give me a really good excuse to really bump the price up of that car as well. Apologies, team, it's not an RS, but it's a banging point.
Right.
It's a really good point because it is previewing effectively the body style for the new RS6.
So that's the new RS5. I haven't driven one yet. Haven't even seen one yet.
Have the media drives been published now?
They have.
Right.
But we're still talking about it was a week ago, 10 days ago.
Sure,
It's all just so new.
But the fact that I read a lot and I didn't really see the media reviews yet, maybe is slightly telling.
Well, I think the critique most people have of it is not unique to Audi. And that's the critique is, well, I can't hear it. I can hear the tyres over the powertrain. It's like, yeah, well, there's some people who work in, Brussels or in the UK government or in wherever. They're the people you want to talk to, not Audi.
Yeah, fair. Even with sports exhaust.
Yeah, even for the fact of the matter is there are targets to be hit and noise regulations, in my view, thanks to people who've put pop and bang maps on their car and woken up neighbours at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Also,
you wake up enough people who work. Eventually, one of them
one's going to work in Department of Transport.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
Go, this is ridiculous.
You wake up enough people,
and of course we sit there and you go, yeah, but you're not going to change it because that person's just going to put a pop and bang map on their next car. We can stop it for the new car. I'm like, that wasn't your problem anyway. But the point being is that that's been leveled at the RS5, but I think a lot of the media drives have had it where you've got the battery cutting in to give them an extra shove of torque, and of course then you lose the noise. Will that matter to people on the road? If it sounds okay in the cabin and you've still got an engine, maybe it won't matter. So I think we'll have to reserve judgment on that one. To end this podcast, we've already said 2 cars that go in the 5-car garage.
Yes.
So let's find our last 3 and then we will say goodbye to everyone, because it's been a very long podcast and I keep on having to check that Owen's camera's not overheated, because our backup.
Give it a go. Well, should we list out the cars then? So shall I pitch my final 3? So to where we finished up, we had we'd already agreed the TTRS, both agreed with that. That car goes in there. But the car we immediately decided to go in straight away, unquestioned, is the B7 RS4. So we've got 3 more. So I'll pitch the first one. So I think the RS2, the first datum point for Audi RS, and an incredibly cool car, must have a place there, I'd say. Sorry,
everyone. Owen is doing a great job, but he hasn't got me at the minute because the battery's uncritical on his camera.
Oh, okay.
So carry on, Owen, and I will be back with you in a second.
No problem. So I say the RS2 for all its excessive acceleration and links to Porsche, I think has earned a place in that. Looking at the RS6s, the C5 is very cool, but doesn't really break much new ground for me in terms of drivability. C6, interesting engine, but for me the C7 was a really big jump forward for the RS brand. So I'd have to put that in there. It's got one more. So I'm gonna go with the C8 GT is the most thorough overhaul of a performance flagship, and something completely unique. It's most extreme. I think it's the most extreme estate car I can ever think about being produced. And that's not just the paint scheme; it's the mechanical changes too. So that would be for me the ultimate kind of 5 RS garage. So we've got the TTRS, we've got the RS2, we have the B7 RS4 with its lovely NA engine and manual gearbox. We've then got the C7 RS6. I think I'll probably go standard car, not the performance. I don't think it needs the performance wheels and those kind of things. The standard car's just fine with the sport chassis, no air suspension, not that I'm being too specific, and no sunroof. Let's say. And then finally we'll go with the C8 GT in the Larry paint scheme, not the standard kind of grey colour. So we'll go to that one. So
I'm going to agree with everything you've said,
right?
Because the battery's critical, and I can't find the cable that I need.
Okay,
and we're at the very end of the show, so I'm just going to agree with it and then bid everyone a farewell, because otherwise that camera's going to die. And
all right.
So thank you for this one, Owen. This has been really good, and I hope Audi fans have enjoyed it, because it's been a really good one, and I've enjoyed it.
Epic.
It has, and hopefully, if you do watch the main channel, we're going to try and get one of the RS cars on there at some point. So go over there and subscribe here, and we shall see you all in the next one. Thanks for being here, Owen. See you, everyone.
Thanks all.